Chapter 9:16. Bai Gu Ma Mu's old face showed signs of turning into a black pot. The scene of a meteor shower was beautiful and touching, but the sky was inexplicably raining a group of deadly wood rain. She really couldn't be happy. Especially when she sensed the power of the bright god gate, falling from the sky to suppress the whole world. Bai Gu Ma Mu's heart was even colder from head to toe. This kind of godlike consummate skill was simply cheating. This was a foul roar. Bai Gu Ma Mu opened her mouth, revealing fangs that were not inferior to the sawtooth of a shark. Bai Gu Ma Mu would not wait for death. She aimed at the sky and roared violently. The acid that was more powerful than the one that corroded Dustless broke out of her mouth. Ripples splashed in the void, and the invisible impact swept out like a dragon hurricane. This guy's ability is not simple. It can actually corrode the bright godgate technique. The corner of Dustless's eyes widened, and he said in surprise. Looking up at the sky, one could be surprised to find that the thick red round wood was constantly shrinking and being corroded quickly. The red wood that was originally thicker than a person was like a thumb. But what can be done is always limited. Dustless immediately shook his head and said. His expression was extremely calm. Bai Gu Ma Mu could only corrode a small part of it. Most of the red round wood still fell mercilessly. It was already commendable that she could do this, and it was worthy of praise. Boom, boom, boom. Where Bai Gu Ma Mu was, a large amount of smoke and dust splashed. The empty land was filled by the bright god gate, and turned into an endless mangrove forest. She actually avoided it. Her ability to escape is not bad. Looking as far as the eyes could see, the interior of the smoke and dust soaring into the sky, Dustless's clear eyes could be seen clearly. There was no one inside, and there was no trace of Bai Gu Ma Mu's back at all. It was silent. Obviously, at the critical moment just now, Bai Gu Ma Mu had escaped the suppression of the bright god gate, and escaped. However, at this moment, the ground where Dustless stood turned into a black shadow unexpectedly. It was extremely dark, and the outline reflected on the ground was obviously a huge human body. The most eye-catching thing was her fangs that could tear steel apart. Drip, drip, drip. Drops of unknown green liquid dripped onto the ground, emitting white smoke and corroding the ground mercilessly. After a while, the gigantic shadow finally revealed her ferocious appearance. Her fist, which was a few times bigger than a human head, was raised up high. Her strength was so strong that it could easily destroy a mountain. Armament hockey hardening. The flesh fist instantly turned into a deep dark black, and the power increased by 3 points. Not only that, this fist covered with armament hockey also overflowed with a lot of boiling liquid. Disappear for this old mother. He glanced at Dustless, who was motionless like a mountain, with extreme hatred. Carrying Bai Gu Ma Mu's resentment, his fist blasted out. His target was Dustless, who was motionless. Although Bai Gu Ma Mu was the only woman among the Yonko, her strength was unquestionable. Perhaps it was because her back was facing Bai Gu Mam, but she didn't see the slight smile on Dustless's lips. His indifferent eyes obviously didn't put Bai Gu Mam in his eyes. Everything seemed to go smoothly. Poochie! The immovable Dustless was penetrated in an instant. The fist went through his abdomen, leaving a huge hole. There was no doubt that he was going to die. Bai Gu's mom was wild with joy and almost danced with joy. However, after a few seconds of joy, that strange feeling made her eyes glaze over. It was as if her soul had been sucked out, and she was at a loss. Even though his fist had passed through Dustless's body, it was unable to shake him. In fact, it didn't even touch the edges of Dustless's body. It felt more like his fist had struck empty air. It's impolite not to reciprocate. It's time for me to retaliate. Completely ignoring the fist inserted in his abdomen, Dustless's body strangely floated in the air. Just now, he actually used Kamui to completely ignore it. Therefore, Bai Gu Ma Mu did not attack Dustless from beginning to end. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Between his fingers high-density light speed condensed, aimed at Bai Gu Ma Mu's right eye, and immediately shot out mercilessly. The fragile part of the eye has zero chance of defending against the impact of the beam. Laser! The straight speed of light whistled out and disappeared in a flash. The dazzling brilliance made people unable to open their eyes. Bai Gu Ma Mu quickly closed her eyes. In the face of this devil-like beam, she was helpless and unlucky. Poochie! Even if closing the eyes can play a certain defensive role, The right eye still turned into a scorched hole. Bai Gu Ma Mu gritted her teeth in pain. The hysterical posture revealed the madness of perishing together. Dustless completely enraged her. The rough big hand stroked the right eye in disbelief. Even if both eyes were destroyed by Dustless, it was actually not a big deal. After all, the ability of observation hockey was more reliable than the eyes. However, the most unacceptable thing for Bai Gu Ma Mu was that she was perfectly fine with 4 limbs, but she was crippled by Wu Chen. Moreover, she was gloriously turned into a one-eyed man. This was unbearable. Chapter 9:17. Twitching her arm, touching her burnt right eye back and forth, Bai Gu Mam tried her best to hide her calmness, but even so, the squirming corners of her mouth could still be seen that she was in a state of rage at the moment. As long as someone dared to step on the door, they could instantly detonate this blazing volcano. There was no need for a big flame. A spark could ignite a prairie fire. No matter when, there was the existence of courting death. Yo! Don't show such a man-eating expression. You should thank me for turning you into a one-eyed dragon. Some people want to ask me to do this, but it's impossible. This is the treatment of a regular customer, a luxurious VIP treatment. The untimely ridicule added fuel to the fire, full of endless sarcasm and contempt. Looking closely, it was Dustless who deserved a beating. The joking expression and frivolous tone provoked Bai Gu Mam's reason. The smiling expression was looking forward to looking at Bai Gu Mam, who was about to go berserk. Obviously, it was deliberately provoking Bai Gu Mam. Clenching her huge iron fist tightly, Bai Gu Mam almost vomited blood when she heard the words. The meaning of these words seemed to be that she had to thank Dustless for his kindness. Doesn't that mean that you destroyed my right eye, and I have to thank you for your greatness? Bai Gu Mam's face was red. To be honest, it was the first time she had seen such a shameless person. Do you need me to sing praises for you again and praise your great deeds? At the end, Bai Gu Mam's voice increased dozens of times, and the whole person almost jumped up exaggeratedly. This old woman is full of energy, and she can live for 20 or 30 years. Dustless couldn't help but feel a chill. Bai Gu Mam's appearance was extremely ugly. Now, this appearance of killing into the awe-inspiring, even more perfectly showed her ugliness. The fat face trembled, and the eyes were completely squeezed into a line. The face was covered with all kinds of spots, and the whole person's face was almost purple. In Dustless's mind, Blackbeard suddenly appeared. The two of them were the most suitable match, and no one was picky about who. Grumble. Of course, this time it was not hunger, but after seeing the appearance of Bai Gu Mam, the whole person no longer felt empty, and the blood was revived in an instant. In his life, it was the first time that he was disgusted to the point of being full. Boom boom boom. The violent vibration pulled back Dustless's thoughts, and the particles on the ground trembled slowly. Looking as far as the eye could see, it was Bigga's mom who had flipped out. A transparent viscous liquid was seeping out from her body. It was endless, like a boundless ocean. Chi! The ground that was engulfed and corroded by the liquid would emit white waves of air. Soon after, it would die completely and turn into a pitch-black land of death. Bai Gu Ma Mu herself was not affected. Even if she was bathed in the acid, she could still move freely. Bai Gu Ma Mu, who was angry, was obviously going to go all out. The corpses of her own people on the ground were all corroded by her. Buzz buzz buzz. The majestic breath broke out of the body, and the monstrous Haoshiku Haki danced wildly in the sky, and the void was crushed by the momentum of the supreme hegemon, showing a distorted shape. Not only that, this Haoshiku Haki also played a propulsive role, and the acid, which was originally in the state of stagnant water, suddenly rolled like waves. It was like an ocean wave that flowed without end, and in the end, it became a great wave that covered the sky and covered the earth, intending to swallow Dustless along with his bones. Once he was affected by it, then not even his corpse would remain, and it would absolutely be an extremely miserable ending. It's really surprising. The so-called Yonko, 4 emperors, is just like this. Seeing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with deep disappointment. He was looking forward to the performance of Bai Gu Ma Mu, but he did not expect to play such a plain and bad show. In the final analysis, you Yonko, 4 emperors, are also a group of ordinary people with ordinary flesh. Forcing you to come up with a gorgeous show is too simple. Boom boom boom. At the same time, the surging acid waves would completely annihilate Dustless. Bai Gu Ma Mu was very excited when she saw this scene, and her remaining eye was enlarged to see all this. Her bloodshot eyes were filled with endless longing. Towards Dustless, Bai Gu Ma Mu had a kind of hatred that went deep into her soul. She hoped that Dustless would disappear forever without leaving a corpse behind. This island. There's no way it's destroyed. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. I was just passively counterattacking. Naturally, all the faults were pushed to Bai Gu Ma Mu. Dustless condensed the majestic chakra, and the explosive energy fluctuations in his body were enough to crush all creatures. Dustless spread out his hands and hugged the sky. At the moment when groups of acid were about to swallow him, the chakra that had been gathered for a long time burst out with full force, and there was no need to hide it. Super Shinra Tensei. The strength of a ninjutsu was completely dependent on the user's own chakra evaluation. Dustless was a different kind of jubi, and the chakra in his body could be said to be infinite. The high-density chakra that he could mobilize was as much as the sea, and the entire Fishman Island was attacked by the Super Shinra Tensei. Bang bang bang. With a loud bang, the entire Fishman Island's geographical environment was instantly rewritten, or it could be said that it was sent to the ancient era by Dustless. All the buildings on the island collapsed and disappeared, and the wind and sand were everywhere, as if they had come to a desert. At the center of the battle between Dustless and Bai Gu Ma Mu, a deep pit with a radius of 10 kilometers appeared. As for the huge acid waves just now, they evaporated instantly. Chapter 9:18. Looking down from the sky, a huge crater that seemed to have been hit by a meteorite almost affected the entire Fishman Island. It was incomparably hideous, occupying almost a quarter of the area of the Fishman Island. Under one blow, the Fishman Island, which had a history of thousands of years, or even longer, completely entered the end. The geographical environment of the Fishman Island was ruthlessly and coldly destroyed, and it was only a matter of time before it was swept into the garbage dump of history. Not dead. A whisper broke the dead atmosphere, proving that someone was still alive. Looking as far as the eye could see, a figure covered with blood was buried in the sand. Even though she was infinitely close to death, she was still breathing weakly and was able to struggle at death's door. However, from the wounds all over her body, her death was close at hand. You should still be able to move. Whitebeard, 100 Beast Kaido, and Red Hairshanks are all extremely durable. You shouldn't be so fragile. Dustless said frankly. He was convinced that Biga's mom would not be so useless. The strength of the Yonko, 4 emperors, is not only incredible, but their endurance is also beyond imagination. When they were in the marine headquarters, the old Whitebeard was cut open several times, and even his heart was crushed, but he still showed the power to destroy the world. Even if Bigama is not as good as Whitebeard, her endurance is extremely strong. Cough. Sure enough, Bigama's corpse coughed violently, raised her head, revealing a face full of pustules, and her cold eyes were locked on Dustless. Damn, it hurts. The tide-like pain surged all over her body, and Bigama was in so much pain that she wanted to die. Almost all her ribs were broken. It was a miracle that she could still stand up. Her ferocious and gloomy eyes looked at Dustless, and her murderous eyes were full of twisted hatred. She couldn't wait to turn Dustless into a stick. Are you still going to struggle? You are also one of the Yonko, 4 emperors. I want to give you a decent death. Let go so you can suffer less physical pain. Reading the hatred in Biga's eyes, Dustless said out of kindness, after death, I will make you into a puppet. This is also a blessing. However, Bai Gu Ma Mu obviously would not agree to Dustless's good intentions. She was the kind of stubborn person who would rather die than surrender. Moreover, Dustless wanted to make her into a puppet, which was even more impossible. Dream on. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Clenching his fists, Bai Gu Ma Mu said resolutely. As one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, everyone has a last resort. Forget it. You're going to die anyway. I didn't mind euthanizing you, but since you like to die in pain so much, I'll reluctantly fulfill your wish. Seeing that Bai Gu Ma Mu was so insensible, Dustless's expression gradually became cold, and chakra with the nature of disaster surrounded his body. Even his deep eyes have undergone amazing changes. Looking at Bai Gu Ma Mu, she instinctively looked back and felt that the god of death was smiling at her. At this time in the other direction. It was so dangerous just now. If we arrived a little later, we would have been destroyed by that force. Bastard. When did such a big shot appear on the small fishman island? In an obscure port, the Don Quixote pirates secretly landed. Looking back, the pirate ship they were on had become a pile of scrap metal. Just now, a majestic impact directly destroyed their pirate ship. If it weren't for the fact that they were already close to the port, they would have been buried in the depths of the sea if they were a little late. Many of the flamingo pirates had just walked through the gates of hell. Young master, are we going to retreat? The fluctuations of the two fighting just now. Treble's tone stagnated, with a little fear and fear. Not only him, but all the members of the Don Quixote pirates looked at the northern sky in unison. The fighting fluctuations there could be clearly felt even tens of kilometers away. A group of Don Quixote pirates were sweating, and their hearts were in their throats. This level of war is obviously beyond the level of an admiral. Doflamingo was also feeling guilty, and his forehead was covered with crystal drops of sweat visible to the naked eye. His eyes flashed with fear. He guessed right. The initiator was by Guma Mu who came before him. No, now is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. While they are fighting, let's take the opportunity to capture Shirahoshi. Greed finally prevailed over reason, and Doflamingo's tone was unquestionable. His cold eyes then looked around, and the members of the Don Quixote pirates all shut up. If they irritate him, they may be killed by the angry Doflamingo. You don't have to worry. As a leader, not only must he use force to oppress, but he must also know how to use force. His voice was lowered, and all the hostility in his words disappeared. After getting Shirahoshi, we will be the overlords of this world, and you will all be heroes. Follow me to look down on this world. Doflamingo raised his arms and shouted, and his tone was full of endless temptation. The cadres of the Don Quixote pirates immediately became hesitant. In life, everyone lives for fame and fortune. Chapter 9:19. The nature of pirates is naturally greedy. Doflamingo covets Shirahoshi's ability and wants to use it as a benchmark to rule the world. After all, he has too many enemies. But the fishman named Shirahoshi will definitely not be captured. What if she orders the Sea Kings to attack us? Don't forget that this is the Fishman Island. There are countless large Sea Kings wandering around. Maybe we will turn from prey to hunters. I believe no one in this world will sit still and wait for death. Doflamingo's subordinate Pika said. It's barely acceptable on the island, but in this vast ocean, the Overlord is definitely the Sea King. A Sea King with a physique of tens of thousands of meters is enough to tear up all prey. The members of the Don Quixote pirates were silent and looked at Doflamingo. Since this boss intends to plot against Shirahoshi, he must come up with a feasible plan. There is no need to worry. Before all this, I have calculated it in advance. Hearing this, Doflamingo's face was full of confidence, and the corner of his mouth raised a confident arc, and he said in a deep voice, "The mermaid named Shirahoshi is indeed dangerous, but she is not invincible. I heard from Caribou that Shirahoshi's mother, Princess Otoheim, loves her very much." Doflamingo smiled gloomily. The meaning is self-evident. Obviously, he wants to capture Princess Otoheim, threaten Shirahoshi, and let her obediently wait for death. The means are a bit despicable, but there is no other way. Who let them be pirates? Time flies. Dustless and Biguma finally reached the end. Can you still hold on? You and the strongest creature, 100 Beast Kaido, can fight. Wu Chen stood alone, staring at 100 Beast Kaido in front of him. Although Kaido was in a sorry state, he was still able to stand up. His eyes flashed with surprise. Taking a closer look, Bai Guma Mu was already riddled with holes. Even so, her face was still rosy, and her endurance was quite strong. Even with her calm appearance, it was not a problem for her to continue fighting for a few hours. Oh! His huge pupils enlarged as he laughed sinisterly. You want to kill me? You can't do that. Mocking Dustless to her heart's content, Bai Guma Mu was unscrupulous. In fact, she was already a lamp that had run out of oil. Now, it was equivalent to the last moments of her life. However, she forced herself to hold on. In fact, she was dragging Dustless to the grave with her. Looks like your unrealistic thoughts haven't faded away. Dustless frowned slightly. He sensed the crazy aura around Bai Guma Mu's body. He involuntarily shook his head. His expression immediately became stern as he whistled out like a ray of light shooting through the sun. It came and went without a trace, and one could only catch a faint afterimage, disappearing in a flash. It was wishful thinking to think that human eyes could keep up with the speed of light. Humph. With a snort of "Injie," Bai Gu Ma Mu simply closed her eyes. The observation hockey spread out, and the traceless dustless suddenly appeared in her perception. Found it. After a while, Bai Gu Ma Mu, who locked on Dustless's movement, opened her left eye, and her whole body was filled with terrible hostility. Her eyes were filled with deadly danger. The black iron fist covered with acid blasted out, and the air shook, and the destructive wave eroded toward Dustless. Photons floated and condensed into Dustless's thin body. Staring at the oncoming fist, Dustless's eyebrows couldn't help but raise, and a transparent fist was clearly visible. A ray of light emerged from the palm of his hand, and it immediately compressed rapidly, turning into a laser sword, revealing the sharpness of cutting iron like mud. Kusanagi Cloud Sword. Dustless looked cold, and the sword in his hand fell. A golden afterimage was drawn in the air, and the transparent acid fist was penetrated by this ray of sharp light. Poochie! The acid fist was immediately torn apart by the sword pressure and split into two halves, and immediately turned into countless transparent acid. It's actually broken? Bai Gu Ma Mu was surprised, and her absent-minded eyes were a little sluggish. Her proud move was so easily broken, and she felt powerless from the bottom of her heart. Her only remaining left eye was also dim. The bone marrow in her whole body seemed to have been sucked dry, and Bai Gu Ma Mu was particularly weak and haggard. Her original black hair instantly turned white, and her whole body swayed, as if she was mercilessly abandoned by the world. Poochie! There was a kind of piercing pain in her heart, and the burning pain spread to her limbs and bones. Bai Gu Ma Mu opened her eyes and looked down, and her heart was pierced through by a golden sword. A thin and weak body was reflected on the ground, and her hair was messy in the weeds, giving people a feeling that she was particularly free and easy. The initiator who gave Bai Gu Ma Mu a fatal blow was surprisingly the indifferent Dustless. The sharpness of the Kusanagi Cloud Sword crushed her heart, and not only that, the scorching light was incomparably hot, mercilessly destroying Bai Gu Ma Mu's internal organs, and rapidly reducing her vitality. Time is unforgiving, you are already old, and this world is no longer suitable for you. Along with your past glory, now vanish into thin air, Bai Gu Ma Mu. After saying that, Dustless slowly pulled out the Kusanagi Cloud Sword, and one could clearly see that Bai Gu Ma Mu's chest was pierced through by a large hole, and her internal organs were all destroyed, and she was completely dead. The invincible big pirate of a generation fell just like that. Chapter 9:20. The destruction of her heart also means that this person has come to an end, and her life has come to an end. Putong! Bai Gu Mam, who was emptied, fell to the ground. Her eyes were unwilling, and she looked blankly at Dustless who was looking down at her. Bai Gu Mam wanted to stand up and fight, but she was powerless. She knew that her floating life was about to be completely stabilized. You guy! Bai Gu Mam's eyes widened, and she used the last remaining time to recall the battle just now. About a few hours had passed, but she had been in a state of complete defeat, and she had been suppressed and beaten violently. This guy is obviously a god in human clothes. I can't beat him at all. Bai Gu Mam muttered to herself. Although her tone was full of unwillingness, she couldn't help but be convinced. The gap between her and Dustless was so big, like a giant and a baby in swaddling clothes. There was no extra strength to resist. Is this a human? Not at all. It is obviously a god in human skin sent by God to go against her. This is simply cheating. The two are completely different, and there is no comparison at all. Just now it was not so much a battle. It was better to say that Dustless has been playing with her to pass the boring time. However, listening to what you mean, it seems that you want to make my body into a puppet, and use me to deter the group of pirates in the New World? It's really a despicable means. Bai Gu Ma Mu used the last of her strength to say in a trembling voice. There was a touch of carefreeness in her words. Even if I die, I will not let you succeed. After that, Bai Gu Mam overflowed a lot of green acid and corroded her body. Seeing this, Dustless frowned slightly, and after thinking for a while, he stretched his brows again. Don't be mistaken, although I care about your body, I don't have to get it. Glancing at Bai Gu Mam, Dustless felt a little sleepy, and then sat on a clean stone casually, looking at her who was gradually corroded by acid, and his tone was unusually cold. You are just a harmless pawn. It is good if you can be used. If you can't be used, there is no harm in it. Impossible. Baigu's mom immediately denied Dustless's statement loudly and said affirmatively, You must want to use my reputation and the people's scruples about the 4 emperors to achieve some unknown purpose. Although it was just a simple and baseless conjecture, Baigu Mamu was very sure that no matter what the reason was, Dustless taking her body was definitely not a good thing. Don't think too highly of yourself. I'll repeat myself one last time. You're just a harmless chess piece. Even that Doflamingo guy is more useful than you. In short, you're just a dispensable pawn. Dustless mocked coldly. This fat idiot really overestimated himself. Oh! A heaven-shaking roar suddenly sounded out from the distance. Looking up, Zhao Fu saw a few 10,000-meter-long sea kings roaring, giving off boundless killing intent. What happened? Dustless frowned when he noticed the sea king's abnormality. The first person he thought of was Shirahoshi. Good chance, go to hell. Seeing that Dustless was distracted, Baigu's mom's eyes lit up. Her body stood up strangely. Her body was full of acid, and it pressed on Dustless like a mountain. Reckless thing. Noticing that the sky suddenly turned dark, Dustless's face was full of hostility. He looked up at Baigu's mom's body that was about to fall, and he immediately condensed an ugly black iron rod in his hand. Whoosh! The iron rod hit Baigu's mom's abdomen. Her body collapsed in an instant and disappeared strangely. She would definitely die if she was hit by the black rod supported by the yin-yang escape. After a few seconds, Dustless walked toward the castle where Shirahoshi and Princess Otoji were. At this moment the castle? No, perhaps it could not be called a castle anymore. It was surrounded by ruins. There were fragments everywhere. The previous castle had disappeared. There is really such an incredible ability in the world. It seems that Caribou Kid did not lie to me, but this kind of top-secret information can't be known to outsiders. I will kill that kid when I go back. Doflamingo smiled gloomily and proudly. He looked at Shirahoshi and the giant sea king behind her. His eyes were full of fanaticism. He seemed to have seen the future of the king of the world. His eyes were shining. There was also a graceful woman beside him. She had bright and dazzling golden hair. Her facial features were perfect. Her every move exuded a mature charm. She was very charming. The only pitiful thing was that at this moment, there were 2 lines of tears in the beautiful woman's crystal eyes. Behind her, there were many subordinates of Flamingo. Mother. Looking at Princess Otoji who was captured as a hostage, Shirahoshi's nose was sour. She looked anxious and painful. Her crying appearance was particularly pitiful. There were also many Flamingo who were used to having a heart of stone. In the face of such a touching scene, not only did he not blame himself, but there was a hideous smile at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 921. It's normal for Doflamingo to be so cold. He was originally abnormal. He was ruthlessly treated in his childhood, which caused his whole life values to be distorted, so it's normal for him to be crazy. Because his whole life has been like this. Please let go of my mother, or I will not be polite to you. The white and tender lotus arm wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, and Shirahoshi's eyes fell on Doflamingo, showing a rare touch of awe. The large sea king floating behind her also swam around, opening its bloody mouth, which was almost 1,000 meters long, and could even swallow the whole world, which made the Don Quixote family cadre frightened. This level of sea king 1 or 2, or even dozens of them can be dealt with, but when this number multiplies, it becomes thousands of them? Even if Doflamingo followed suit, facing the siege of thousands of sea king, Admiral, Yonko, 4 emperors, or something will definitely die. Of course, Doflamingo's face is still full of morbid excitement. Looking across the layers of time and space, Doflamingo has seen him standing at the end of the sky, arrogant. Even the nightmarish enemy Dustless also bowed his head. Thinking about it, his heart jumped, looking at Shirahoshi, who was close at hand. He never felt that the position of the king of the world was so close to him. What pirate king, marine admiral is simply weak. Hey! It's okay to let her go, but you, his gaze circled around Shirahoshi as Doflamingo continued to bluff. Of course I can let your mother go, but in exchange, you have to immediately leave this place and serve me. Doflamingo smiled sinisterly, and there was a cunning light in the depths of his eyes. Of course. He will not let go of Princess Otoheim. This is the only existence that can restrain Shirahoshi at present. Don't listen to this man's nonsense, he is lying to you. The real purpose is actually you. Leave here quickly, your father will protect you. Princess Otoheim is also a veteran, and she naturally understands what Doflamingo wants, and she hurriedly shouted at Shirahoshi. You can leave, but... Doflamingo was calm, took out a gun from his arms, and pointed the dark muzzle at Princess Otoheim's head. If you run, your mother will be killed. Seeing this, Shirahoshi's intention to leave immediately disappeared. She looked nervously at Doflamingo, looking pitiful, and finally gave up the idea of leaving. Hey, emotional creatures are really the best to use. What a group of idiots. Doflamingo looked up to the sky and laughed unscrupulously. He saw Shirahoshi's weakness, so he used Princess Otoheim as a breakthrough point to threaten Shirahoshi. The current scene was just as he had imagined. Shirahoshi had indeed chosen to resign herself to death. By the way, Doflamingo's smile froze. If he remembered correctly, Princess Aji's husband should be King Neptune, but that guy seemed to have died many years ago. The father mentioned just now was obviously not Neptune. Who is your father? Tell me, or I will kill Shirahoshi. He's Shirahoshi, 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 Shirahoshi. I haven't seen you for a while. Your courage has grown a lot, Doflamingo. A ghostly voice suddenly entered his ears. Doflamingo instinctively broke out in goosebumps. This frivolous and lazy voice that looked down on all living things, he was very familiar with it. Not only was it familiar, but there was also a bone-deep fear. Fear of that man seemed to be an instinct, and Doflamingo himself couldn't control it. Shirahoshi, a figure appeared beside her. Dustless. Father. Seeing Dustless appear, Shirahoshi cried tears of joy, afraid that he would disappear again, so she couldn't wait to hold him up, and immediately buried him in the Jade Maiden Peak. Let go of me, Shirahoshi. Dustless said with a headache. Looking at Princess Otoheim, who was taken hostage by Doflamingo, Dustless gave her a comforting look, indicating that she didn't need to worry. What else do you have to explain, Doflamingo? Dustless asked indifferently as his emotionless eyes fell on Doflamingo. Humph, I have nothing to explain, as you can see. Shirahoshi didn't know why, perhaps it was because of his habit of being a lackey, but every time Dustless spoke, the first thought that came to his mind was how to flatter. Just thinking about it made Doflamingo angry. After being a lackey for more than 10 years, obeying Dustless had become a habit. Every time he heard Dustless's voice, he would reflexively reveal a flattering expression. That's right. Between you and me, there is indeed nothing worth saying. Perhaps I should ask directly, you captured my woman, how do you want to die? Dustless's indifferent face disappeared, and his face was as cold as a blade. Staring at his expression, there was a faint stinging pain in his eyes. Gulp, the members of the Don Quixote pirates grunted unnaturally and looked at Dustless with fear. After Whitebeard was annihilated by him, the title of the strongest man in the world fell on him. Dustless's bottomless strength made all creatures living under the sea, land, and air feel fear. Chapter 922. Compared with his subordinates whose souls were cold, Doflamingo was as calm as a mountain. I warn you, this guy caught our weakness. He will never let us go. There is only one way to betray him, death. Fearing that this group of family cadres would have some unrealistic ideas, Doflamingo had to raise his voice to warn them, and there was also an undisguised threat. Don't forget, we still have a trump card. Pointing to Princess Otoheim beside him, Doflamingo regained some confidence. The role and benefits of this hostage were absolutely beyond imagination, and her power was even more than a Yonko for emperors. After all, Yonko for emperors had to kneel when they met Dustless. Only this woman would make him indecisive. The cadre of the Don Quixote family heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. They finally had some confidence. They unanimously leaned toward Princess Otoheim. This was their temporary life-saving chip. Naturally, they had to watch her closely. Want to threaten me? If it were Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, they would have used this method. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, squinting his eyes. This funny strategy was meaningless. Not to mention that Doflamingo didn't dare to kill Princess Otoheim now. He still needed this hostage for the time being. Taking a step back, if her blood splashed on the spot, with Rinnegan's incredible degree, resurrecting her was a trivial matter. Boom! The particles on the ground suddenly became restless, and then strangely floated in the air. Princess Otoheim was the same. The whole world seemed to be floating. The sudden scene made everyone stare at each other, including Princess Otoheim, who was also full of horror. She didn't realize what had happened. Wuxia heavens pull. A magnetic voice fell, and the initiator was also exposed. Doflamingo's face was full of anger, and his body was full of killing intent. Now that he and Dustless had a falling out, he naturally wouldn't show mercy. Even if Doflamingo wanted to show mercy, Dustless would definitely ignore him. Staring at the unguarded back of Princess Otoheim, Doflamingo's eyes flashed a ruthless color, and there was a dark evil smile, and immediately dozens of transparent lines popped out of his hand, connecting the limbs of Princess Otoheim. Parasitic thread. Doflamingo's fingers shook slightly. Princess Otoheim's drooping limbs immediately rose up. She waved her fist with a pained expression, smashing it towards Dustless's face. Only those with excellent eyesight could see that Princess Aji's body was being controlled by transparent lines. Bang! He opened his palm and easily caught the incoming fist. This white line that controlled Princess Aji naturally could not escape Dustless's capture. Hee hee. Even the cold-blooded you are unable to do anything to your lover. How laughable. To think that I used to think that you were an invincible and perfect existence. It turns out that you are also a mortal. Seeing that Dustless couldn't bear to kill him, Doflamingo said disdainfully, you controlled this woman to attack. You must be helpless too, hee hee. Hearing this, Wuxia didn't even look at Doflamingo. He stared at the sharp white line with contempt on his face. Helpless? How laughable. Don't compare me with a mortal like you. It's easy to crack this line. Under the surprised gaze of the members of the Don Quixote pirates and Doflamingo himself, Dustless's petite right arm touched the parasitic thread connected to Princess Otoheim. Amaterasu. The line as hard as iron, as if it had encountered a deadly natural enemy, touched the black fire that could devour everything, and instantly melted and collapsed. Princess Otoheim's painful expression also recovered. You can't do it, but it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Princess Otoheim was sent to Shirahoshi's hands. Dustless's killing intent was over. You have served me for more than 10 years. Today, I will give you a special discount. Everyone report to hell together. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with blood-red hostility. He took a big stride forward and crossed the space. Bastard, so fast. Everyone spread out. Doflamingo's expression changed greatly, and his pupils shrank. With just a thought, Dustless arrived as scheduled, and his abnormal speed was beyond what he had ever seen in his life. Shoo shoo shoo. The members of the Don Quixote family heard this and did not hesitate to burst back. In a fight of this level, they would only be a burden if they attacked. Wire saw. An afterimage swayed in the void, followed by an invisible cold light that was sharper than a tachi swept across, cutting iron like mud. It was completely from Doflamingo's fruit ability, and it was very powerful. In the face of such a fierce attack, an insignificant finger was gently raised. Seeing this, Doflamingo's heart was filled with anger. What are you dreaming about? Do you want to use a finger to block my attack? Do you think I am that kind of fish? The corner of his mouth that was flying all over the sky stopped abruptly, and the thinking in Doflamingo's mind was short-circuited. What happened before was like a dream. The white jade finger raised high easily blocked the sharp wire saw and completely stopped Doflamingo's attack. Dustless's expression was slightly lazy, showing a flash of light with a playful tease. Immediately, his thumb gently exerted force, and a crisp sound made everyone stagnate. Bang! The wire saw that could be said to be unparalleled, harder than steel, suddenly broke in two, as fragile as paper. From the beginning to the end, Dustless only used a finger to break the string fruit's ability. Chapter 923. This dreamlike and unreal scene petrified all the Don Quixote cadres. In their hearts, Doflamingo is actually a godlike existence, the invincible strongest captain. Doflamingo's attack was stopped by the enemy with a single finger. The shock in his heart was like a stormy sea, out of control. Many of the Don Quixote cadres even pinched their skin, thinking that this was a dream, but the heart-wrenching pain made them speechless, and they all stared at Doflamingo in disbelief. When a person's faith collapses, this person will also be deeply hit and even unable to recover. The current members of the Don Quixote pirates are no more than this. Doflamingo's attack was blocked by his thumb, and these cadres' eyes were dead. They are rookies, who are not even as good as Doflamingo. What can they do? They are looking for death. Bullet line. The white light like a cannonball whistled out, and its power was no less than that of a bullet from a gun. Boom! However, when it came into contact with Dustless's forehead, the white light was bounced off, and a thumb-sized hole was gouged out of the ground. Shout! A gust of wind blew, and Doflamingo quickly retreated, his brows tightly wrinkled, feeling an abnormal headache, and there was a sense of powerlessness. This is a complete violation of the rules. Whiz! The blazing temperature condensed behind him, and Doflamingo, who was unaware of it, bowed his head and thought. After all, the speed of light has an absolute advantage. Armament hockey hardening. Although it is impossible to capture with the naked eye, observation hockey detects the position of Dustless, and Doflamingo used hockey to defend himself. However, being able to defend does not mean that he can withstand it unscathed. With a cold expression, Dustless was not merciful, and his fist covered with armament hockey mercilessly greeted Doflamingo's head. Poochie! The ugly iron fist blasted Doflamingo, and the ground also pulled out a burst of smoke and dust. Because of the fierce force, Doflamingo vomited blood again and again. Shoo shoo shoo! Dustless did not intend to stop, and dense flashes filled Doflamingo's entire eye socket. Yasakani no Magatama. Doflamingo was shocked to see such an exaggerated attack. He immediately forced his swaying body to stand up. He still had dreams that had yet to be realized. He absolutely could not lie here. I can only use the awakening fruit once. Hesitation flashed through Doflamingo's mind. At such a desperate moment, Doflamingo's strong desire to survive burst forth, driving him to burst forth with even more strength than before. Buzz buzz buzz. The ground throbbed and surged strangely. Several huge lines could be seen. Shield white line. The large lines on the ground rose from the ground and intersected in front of Doflamingo. They were as dense as a spiderweb, and their neat appearance was enough to defend against all attacks. Clang, clang, clang. It's too late to say this now, Master Dustless. White Zetsu shrugged frivolously and immediately cut off Doflamingo's arm. Half of the arm merged with Doflamingo's body, and the latter's body that was full of injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Betrayed you? You forced me to do this. Doflamingo, who was gradually recovering, shouted. People like you can't live in this world. Your existence is a blasphemy to all living creatures. It's not just me. I'm afraid Hawkeye also has the same idea. A person who can never be surpassed. Only when he disappears will the world be peaceful. When people have great power, they will be isolated. Now Dustless is in this situation, including White Zetsu, who he created, also left him. Hearing this, the last remaining conscience in Dustless's heart disappeared. Human nature is so ugly. I originally wanted to destroy the world government's rule and establish my dream. Now it seems that my previous idea was a little naive. With a strange smile, Dustless suddenly said loudly, since the creation of the world is not successful, then let's just destroy the world. With the infinite Tsukuyomi, we will end this rotten world. The dawn of dawn will lead all humans into a happy dream. Master Dustless, stop dreaming. My purpose is to pull you down from the altar and replace you as the new king of the world. How can I let you use that technique? Poochie! The white shadow behind him instantly penetrated Dustless's chest and inserted its hand into his heart. Immediately, a mysterious wave of energy surged out. It did not destroy Dustless's body, but unexpectedly gradually merged with it. Yin-yang release. Spiritual fusion. His body quickly turned into liquid. White Zetsu's arm had turned into liquid and wanted to merge with Dustless. From the beginning when Master Dustless created me, I understood that it was impossible to kill you. Thanks to the yin-yang release you gave me, I can replace you directly. You intend to occupy my body? How ironic. This scene is similar to Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu. Looking at the big white hand on his chest, Dustless said with emotion. Immediately, his eyes were cold, and a strange wave of energy directly evaporated the big hand of White Zetsu. How is it possible? Hurriedly pulling out his arm, White Zetsu looked at Dustless in disbelief and said, I have planned all of this for several years. It is impossible to fail. Planning for several years? Idiot! The corner of his mouth was full of ridicule and contempt. Dustless said coldly, The one who created you is me. The one who gave you the yin-yang release is also me. Secondly, I am not Uchiha Madara, and you are not Black Zetsu. Chapter 925. White Zetsu's eyes widened in disbelief, and his pupils widened to the largest extent in his life. Impossible. How can you ignore that technique? White Zetsu shook his head, thinking that this was a dream, and he wanted to free himself from the illusion. His expression was quite painful. The plan he had secretly planned for many years was now in vain, and he was deeply hurt. And he had exposed himself. In this world, there is no invincible technique. Turning his head to look at White Zetsu with pity, Dustless looked down at him, shook his head, and explained sympathetically, a stream is always a stream. Even if he and the sea have the same root, it is impossible to assimilate the sea with his gurgling water. Compared to Dustless, White Zetsu's weak control of the yin-yang escape was not worth mentioning. Wanting to devour his will and take his body for himself was a fool's dream. In short, White Zetsu thought he had a card up his sleeve, but in fact, it was just a joke. It was unrealistic. What are your last words? Looking at White Zetsu, who had a mental breakdown, Dustless asked very uninterestedly. It seemed that White Zetsu's last card was not used at all. Last words? What a joke. I still want to take your body. How can I die in this ghost place? White Zetsu's expression was ferocious, and his words were full of desire and yearning. He was the same as Doflamingo, and could even hide better than Doflamingo. After being Dustless's lackey for so many years, White Zetsu also wanted to understand what it felt like to step on the heads of the world's common people. The mountains don't move. The water moves. There will be a lot of time in the future. Let's wait and see. The moment the voice fell, White Zetsu's body began to sink. Now he had completely fallen out with Dustless, and naturally could not follow him. You bastard! You want to abandon me and escape alone? Doflamingo's bewildered voice came, but White Zetsu was expressionless. He treated Doflamingo as air, and did not put him in his eyes at all. He was just a chess piece. Ah! A dog biting another dog. Doflamingo, you don't have to feel sad. Seeing Doflamingo's murderous expression, Dustless patted his chest and gave a thumbs up, assuring, Don't worry. Both of you will go to the netherworld to continue your fate. If there is any unresolved hatred, we won't eat it. Now, it's better to let me kill both of you first. You want to kill me? Humph, dream. White Zetsu groaned. He sounded very proud. Then he sank into the ground and disappeared. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. Do you think that I can't do anything to you? What a failure. I actually created such an idiot. Wu Chen laughed bitterly at himself. His words were full of sarcasm. Kill me if you dare. Bai Zhu, who was deep under the Merman Island, roared furiously. He naturally understood the ridicule behind Wu Chen's words. Hence, he did not back down and mocked back. I will kill that bastard called White Zetsu, but before that, you go to hell first, Louis South. Doflamingo's aura soared, and the hidden potential in his body was also stimulated. He erupted with an absolute power that could topple mountains and overturn seas, and the ground trembled with the rhythm of Doflamingo. The scene was terrifying. You still don't want to give up? Dustless glanced at him with the eye power of Rinnegan. He sighed lightly, and ripples appeared in his eyes. Tomb of Samsara. Border prison. Doflamingo continued to accumulate strength, and increased his strength to an unprecedented level. After a while, he opened his mouth and showed a savage smile. Hee hee. This time, I will definitely tear you to shreds. Ka ka ka. The crisp sound of bones cracking broke the dull atmosphere. Looking up, Doflamingo's head had been separated from his body, and the head on the ground had turned into minced meat. This guy is still useful. He was beaten like this by the shadow. Forget it. With a sigh, Dustless used Kamui to devour Doflamingo's body. Immediately, ripples appeared in the void, and a strange spiral-shaped sword appeared in Dustless's hand out of thin air. The moment this strange sword appeared, the surrounding space was dead silent. The strange sword was surrounded by scarlet bloodlight, and it seemed to be reading the data of this world, preparing to destroy it. You think you can escape by hiding in the deep sea? I hate traitors the most, White Zetsu. You still have a long way to go if you want to escape from Guile Sword's capture. Looking around, he saw that the entire Fishmen Island was gradually collapsing. It was only a matter of time before it was destroyed. In that case, it was better to let Dustless do it thoroughly. With cold eyes, Dustless immediately began to control Guile Sword with all his strength. Whoosh! The strange spiral sword was like the culprit that destroyed the world. It was surrounded by a desperate and chilling aura, and then it started to rotate. At first, it was just a weak fiery red tornado, and the range was not large, but with Dustless's strength, the Fishmen Island had a huge change in the blink of an eye. The fiery red tornado instantly expanded thousands of times, forming a huge fiery red sword storm under the sea. It was like a black hole that swallowed everything around it. The Fishmen Island collapsed in an instant, and White Zetsu, who was desperately escaping, was also swept in. Chapter 926. Sensing the wind and waves behind him that wanted to tear him to shreds, White Jew was no longer as arrogant and conceited as before. He used all the strength in his body to escape. He never thought that Dustless still had such a peerlessly terrifying move. Boom boom boom. Deep under the sea, the fiery red tornado continued to expand. The entire Fishmen Island was collapsing rapidly. Everything on the island was swallowed by the storm. Wood release. Descent of the Tree World. Sensing that he couldn't pull away from the tornado, White Zetsu clenched his teeth. The chakra in his body surged. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a large forest appeared in the depths of the sea. You actually thought that the descent of the tree world could stop the sharpness of the good separation sword. Are you looking down on me or this guy? Touching the spiral sword in his hand, Dustless muttered to himself. He stared at the forest in the depths of the sea that was stacked up like a city wall. He couldn't help but shake his head. If he wanted to stop the good separation sword, this was far from enough. The Crimson Sword Storm continued to expand its range. It almost destroyed the forest formed by the descent of the tree world in an instant. White Zetsu was also swallowed. Oh! The miserable cry was endless. White Zetsu's body was crushed layer by layer. The desperate cry was filled with fear. He wanted to beg Dustless to let him go, but the next second, he disappeared forever with his bones. Of course, the Fishmen Island that disappeared into dust. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. The Fishmen Island was completely wiped out by Dustless's powerful strength from this planet. There was no longer a place called the Fishmen Island in this world. Did you find the thing? At this moment, inside the Dressrosa Palace, Dustless was sitting comfortably on the seat that belonged to Doflamingo. He was taking a nap, and he was humming a leisurely tune from time to time. He was as happy as a god. Inside the room, there were a few white and alluring bodies on the soft bed. Their white skin was faintly discernible under the blankets, and they were indulging in wild and fanciful thoughts. Other than that, Dustless himself was also dressed in pajamas. It was obvious that he had just done something that was not suitable for children. Khalifa, Hancock, Perona, and Princess Otoheim were rolling on the bed. Princess Otoheim's face was red like a ruby. It wasn't that she was shameless, but Dustless's tough methods were really unreasonable. Sometimes the more she resisted, the more it would arouse Dustless's interest in hunting. Thus, Princess Aji could only let it be. Robin has deceived the Straw Hats into going to Dressrosa, but they seem to be leaving soon to travel to the next island. She didn't care that her perfect body was exposed in front of Dustless's eyes. Hancock put on her own clothes. Regardless of Dustless's wolfish eyes, she was calm. Among the women, Hancock was the one who followed Dustless the longest, so she knew his character well. No matter what she did, she could do it freely. Is the Straw Hats going to travel? No, I think it's over. Since that kid likes to be the Pirate King so much, I'll use the infinite Tsukuyomi Jutsu to pull him into the dream world and let him be the Pirate King for a lifetime. Really, I'm becoming more and more kind. Dustless's words caused the women to roll their eyes and stare at Dustless angrily. Although they didn't know what the infinite Tsukuyumi Jutsu was, they knew from Dustless's mouth that this jutsu covered the whole human race. Hearing that Dustless was going to do something to the whole world, the women found it difficult to accept. After all, this was their home for survival. But later, as time passed, their feelings and ties to this world gradually faded. Whether it was Princess Otoheim, Califa, Perona, Hancock and other women, there was nothing in this world worth remembering. Knock. In the dimly lit room, there was a sudden knock on the door. Dustless bowed his head and looked at Hancock and the other women. They also quickly put on their clothes. Creak. About 10 minutes later, Hancock tidied up her clothes and opened the door with elegant steps. Royce South St. M. Caesar Kalong, who ran in, nodded and bowed. He didn't even have the courage to raise his head and look directly at Dustless. Turning to the right on the left, hidden in the dark space, the emotionless corpse was clearly visible. It was Doflamingo. With the idea of saving resources, the arrogant Doflamingo was also made one of the 6 paths of pain by Dustless. What's the matter? Don't tell me who is bothering you again. Stretching. Dustless's tone was warning. Most of the time, this guy came to him for various problems. Either he was bullied or he had problems with his research. That's not it. Pluton has been completed perfectly and can be dispatched at any time to end the world in front of us. Caesar shook his head like a rattle drum and immediately replied, According to your orders, all of the Netherworld King's cannons have been aimed at Dressrosa. As long as you give the order, we can destroy this island in an instant. Chapter 927. Caesar bent over carefully, raised his eyes, and glanced at Wu Chen. He chose to keep silent. Based on Caesar's cognition, the man in front of him was a temperamental person. If Wu Chen was angered because of his words, it would be a loss if he was killed. Well, you can go back. When I order you to attack Dressrosa, I will use Den Den Mushi to inform you. Rubbing his temples, Wu Chen said drowsily and waved his hand. He didn't care about Caesar's reply and directly asked him to leave. Understood. Caesar nodded and immediately stood up and turned to leave. Master, didn't you say that infinite Tsukuyumi is a one-time ability to destroy the world? The existence of Pluto is already superfluous and completely useless. Hancock tilted her head and wondered. In this world, her relationship with Dustless was the closest. Some unknown secrets, Dustless was happy to tell her. Although infinite Tsukuyumi is the enemy of all creatures, there is an exception to everything. Maybe there is a fish that I didn't expect to slip through the net. Infinite Tsukuyumi is a world-destroying technique, but it doesn't mean that it is invincible. Maybe there is some strange ability that can take advantage of the infinite Tsukuyumi. After all, Uchiha Sasuke's Kansusanu is a lesson. Although Dustless is very confident in the infinite Tsukuyumi, he has already reached the last step, and it's not wrong to take risks. I'll use this thing to trick all the strong people in the world into going to Dressrosa, then use Hades to bombard Dressrosa, and then use infinite Tsukuyumi to end this world. This is my plan. Dustless had a slightly old and yellow blueprint in his hand, but he could clearly see all kinds of data, and the outline of the whole day was an unprecedented giant ship. It is the design of Pluto. After a few days, Doflamingo, one of the 6 paths under my control, will announce to the world that the prize for the winner of this arena is the ancient weapon, Pluto's design. Speaking of this, Dustless was already murderous. Deceiving the strong people of the world to attack Dressrosa, and then using Pluto to bombard them. And finally the main dish, infinite Tsukuyumi. This is undoubtedly a lot safer. With Pluto's design as the reward, it can attract the major forces of the world, whether it is the Yonko for emperors, or the admirals of the marine headquarters, including the hidden revolutionary army, and even the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will personally come to Dressrosa. When the time came, he would activate the ancient weapon, Pluto, to annihilate all of them. Even if there were the occasional undying fish that escaped the net, there was still infinite Tsukuyumi waiting for them. This way, Dustless would be able to rest easy. Inexplicably taking out Pluto's design as bait, others will definitely feel that there is a conspiracy. Hancock gently handed over the steaming hot tea, then said with some worry. The group of people from the Marine headquarters and the Revolutionary Army, including the Yonko, 4 emperors, are not idiots. It's impossible for them to be stupid enough to fall into the trap. There is no need to worry about this kind of small problem. As long as the design is real, even if they know it is a trap, they will rush to get in. This is human nature, whether it is the Revolutionary Army, Red Hair Shanks and Blackbeard of the Yonko 4 Emperors, or the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, and Sakazuki of the world government. These people are eager to get Pluto's design. Wu Chen explained firmly. In fact, it was the same meaning. If there was something that could increase his strength, even if he knew it was a trap, Wu Chen would give it a try. Human nature is greedy. This is what it means. In addition, there is no doubt that the pirates certainly don't want ancient weapons to fall into the hands of the government. The same is true for the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. They hope that the government can control Pluto, and the Revolutionary Army also has its own ideas. Therefore, it is destined that this group of people will gather at Dressrosa. Once the goal is achieved, Dustless will order Caesar to completely destroy Dressrosa. What is waiting for them is the infinite Tsukuyomi. It is never wrong to prepare for a rainy day. By the way, what is the situation in the New World recently? 100 Beast Kaido and Bigumamu are dead, and most of the pirates in the world are in dispute. Uchiha Madara replaced 100 Beast Kaido, but his territories were not inherited by Dustless and Bigumamu. Therefore, pirates all over the world are killing each other, and they are all jealous of the remaining Yonko 4 Emperors' position. Those pirates are really short-sighted. During this cruel time of fighting for the position of Yonko 4 Emperors, the Marine headquarters watched from the sidelines and turned a deaf ear to the struggle for hegemony of the Yonko 4 Emperors. Fleet Admiral Akainu, Sakazuki, didn't send out a single soldier, and a large group of pirates killed each other. In the end, it was the Marine who benefited. The Revolutionary Army and Akagami, Red Hair, pirates have been very close recently. After a long silence, Hancock suddenly said something surprising. This is expected. The relationship between Luffy and Red Hair Shanks is well known, and Luffy's father is the leader of the Revolutionary Army. It is normal for Red Hair Shanks to hook up with him. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stagnated, and immediately sneered. The two of them have a common enemy, and that is me. Red Hair Shanks and Dragon are not people who sit still and wait for death. It is natural for them to choose another way out. It is normal for them to collude together to deal with me. Chapter 928. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stagnated, and he immediately sneered. They both have a common enemy, which is me. Red Hair Shanks and Drago are not people who wait for death. It's natural for them to choose another way out. It's normal for them to collude with each other to deal with me. The conspiracy of Drago and Red Hair Shanks, and even other people participated in it, was also within Dustless's expectations. No one would sit still and wait for death. It was normal for them to even give up their grudges and work together with Blackbeard in the past. There was no eternal grudge, only eternal interests. Blackbeard also regarded Dustless as his biggest enemy, so it was normal for them to go together. In fact, as Dustless thought, Blackbeard and Red Hair Shanks had contact during this period. Do you think you can stop me by joining forces? It's as ridiculous as the sun rising from the west tomorrow. Gao Yang's mouth showed contempt, and Dustless sneered at the approach of Yonko 4 Emperors and the Revolutionary Army. It's all young master's fault. Hancock rolled her eyes and complained. If she was Red Hair Shanks, Monchidi, Drago, and others, she would choose the same approach. After all, with a godlike enemy, there was no other way but to join forces. That's because they brought it upon themselves. This is the price of going against me. Dustless's murderous intent was exposed, and his whole body was filled with a dangerous aura. His pair of deep eyes instantly became as cold as a beast. Red Hair Shanks opposed me more than 10 years ago. Later, I cut off his arm. I thought that kid would be more sensible, but now it seems that he didn't realize his shortcomings. Instead, he became even more aggressive. Since he was so insensible, Dustless could only crush him. By the way, young master, as if thinking of something, Hancock frowned. A few days ago, Clia Saint suddenly visited, and you happened to be away from Mariewa. Dustless was confused when he heard that. He scratched his head and didn't remember that he knew this person. Then he asked blankly, I don't seem to have any connection with this person, especially since there is a holy behind her name. She should be a celestial dragon. I don't have such a person. Suddenly, a beautiful golden figure appeared in his mind. Wuchen suddenly thought of his fiancée of more than 10 years. Long golden hair cascaded down his back like a waterfall. His eyes were pure and flawless like gems. His perfect face was like a masterpiece of the heavens, a work of the gods. He was wearing a slender holy sword, and his aura was noble and pure. Every inch of his body was abnormally perfect. That's strange. Why did she suddenly come looking for me? It's been more than 10 years. I thought that Clea had already died. Also, she hasn't come looking for me for more than 10 years. I'm afraid that she's already old. Dustless waved his hand and said in annoyance, "Tell her not to look for me in the future." Anyway, the two of them didn't have any connection. They had only met once, and Dustless almost killed her at that time. There was no need to think about the relationship between the two of them. "Young master, you worry too much. Clea, holy, is the same as the young man. Her appearance hasn't deteriorated. She still maintains her original appearance." Hancock smiled mysteriously. "Just her." Dustless had a strange expression on his face when he heard that. It wasn't that he looked down on her. That girl named Clea had the strength of a general. At most she was in the category of Kaido and the others. In the eyes of the world, she was strong enough, but it was impossible for her to stay young forever. Forget it. No matter what, don't ask her to look for me in the future. Otherwise, I won't be polite. Dustless didn't have a good impression of that Clea, holy. He still clearly remembered that she not only broke into Dustless's bedroom, but also criticized Dustless's writing. And that woman is very strange. She doesn't seem to belong to the human race. I'm not interested in that kind of person. Dustless shivered unnaturally. What if a toad turned into a human and he became her fiancé? Dustless shivered thinking about it. Ta-ta-ta. Suddenly there were messy footsteps in the corridor. Khalifa? Staring at Khalifa who suddenly appeared, Dustless was surprised. Before, he arranged for Khalifa to collect information. Now that White Zetsu betrayed them, all the information fell on Khalifa's head. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dorag, and Shanks met. It seems that there is also Marshal D. Titch. Khalifa's tone was extremely uncalm. This was equivalent to 3 Yonko, 4 emperors, teaming up. It has nothing to do with me. This should be the Marines' concern. It's not our turn to care. Dustless chuckled. He was unusually calm. Then he added, if the 3 of them can team up and come to Dressrosa to die, that would be the best. Dressrosa, with its beautiful scenery, was very suitable to be the tomb of the Yonko, 4 emperors. Master, don't dream about it. Hancock complained. Dustless smiled mysteriously. No, this is not a dream. Maybe it won't be long before the Yonko, 4 emperors, come to Dressrosa to die. On an island in the New World, there were 3 warships docked at the port. The warships didn't have any flags, and the power they belonged to was unknown. But the people who came down from them belonged to the people who could make the world tremble. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dorag, Sabo, the current Yonko, 4 emperors, Shanks, Blackbeard, and an unexpected figure, Uchiha Madara. This old thing will never amount to anything great. In the end, he can only be one of the 4 emperors. Two's Uchiha Madara, Dustless, Blackbeard, and Blackbeard's has made no progress in others. Has. Blackbeard, if you want to fight, I have no right to stop it, but I will stand on his side. Pointing to Uchiha Madara, Red Hair Shanks said very wisely. Me too, I will stand on his side. Taking a deep look at Red Hair Shanks, the reticent Durag said. You want to work together to deal with me? Blackbeard vomited blood, and cursed in his heart. He was also a smart person, and he naturally knew what this meant. Not only Uchiha Madara looked down on him, but Durag and Red Hair Shanks also looked down on him. In the troubled world, the strong are respected, and the 2 of them turned to Uchiha Madara because they agreed that Uchiha Madara was stronger than Blackbeard. Otherwise, Red Hair Shanks and Durag may have teamed up with Blackbeard to deal with Uchiha Madara. In the end, in this world, the strong people have the final say, and in the end, they think that Uchiha Madara has a better future. It's all to deal with the Marine. It's not too late to talk about personal grievances later. Knocking lightly on the table, Durag's voice was soft, but full of reason. Giving Uchiha Madara a fierce look, the angry Blackbeard restrained his anger. Even if Durag and Red Hair Shanks really scared him, Blackbeard didn't dare to act rashly. You only have one life, and if you lose the bet, it's gone. Yes, this time I came up to discuss how to deal with Royce South. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, laughed and continued to control Uchiha Madara. I recently got information that Royce South is in Dressrosa. We should ambush him immediately. Otherwise, when he returns to the Marine headquarters or Mariehua, it will be difficult to kill him. That's right, this is indeed an opportunity. The Marine headquarters is full of strong people, and Mariehua is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Blackbeard rarely agreed with Uchiha Madara's point of view, bowing his head and agreeing. Being beaten by Dustless in succession has become his shadow, and this thorn in his flesh must be pulled out. Red Shersons, Red Shanks, Shanks is so shameless, Red Shanks Rua Shanks. His heart is terrible. Our order is to overthrow the world government, not to deal with a marine admiral. Seeing everyone's eyebrows pulled on Dustless, Durag had to stand up and say his point of view. Hearing this, Red Hair Shanks smiled calmly and said, "You may not know that Louis South is a marine admiral, and he also has the identity of a celestial dragon. It is natural for the Revolutionary Army to deal with him." After thinking about it, Durag nodded silently. "Get out of my way, I must kill this kid." Uchiha Madara's killing intent soared to the sky, and a powerful momentum broke out of his body, making people breathless. "He is our ally." Shanks strengthened his tone and refused to back down. Law was invited by him. If he killed him, where would his face go? Uchiha Madara's refusal to back down made him feel extremely puzzled and asked, "If you want to kill someone, at least give everyone a suitable reason." Everyone looked at Tendo Uchiha Madara with recognition. This? Dressrosa's Dustless stagnated, and his eyes changed rapidly. He scratched his head and couldn't think of a suitable reason. At the moment, the chakra in his body erupted, and he planned to force Law, but a light suddenly appeared in his mind. This kid, he has always been Doflamingo's subordinate. He must have been sent by Doflamingo to spy on us. Regardless of the consequences, Uchiha Madara's words were filled with dirty water. Hearing this, Law's thoughts were obviously messed up. He was speechless, and there was a brief silence. After a while he immediately explained, "I used to be Doflamingo's subordinate, but Poochie." The cold light came like the speed of light, and in the blink of an eye, Law's chest was easily crushed and his heart was crushed in one fell swoop. It turned out to be him. Uchiha Madara was also surprised to see the figure behind Law. He didn't expect that he would kill Law. Chapter 931. Not only was Tendo Uchiha Madara stunned, Red Hair Shanks and Blackbeard were also very surprised. Looking at the huge bloody hole in Law's chest and the shattered heart, everyone was stunned. "I'm sorry, young man. Although your name also has D in it, and you even saved that silly boy Luffy during the War of the Best. Please forgive me. As for the reason for killing you, Royce South's strength is beyond imagination. Maybe you were tampered with by him, but you still don't know it. I used to be the same. The one who gave Law a fatal blow and destroyed his heart in one fell swoop. Monchi D. Dorag, Luffy's biological father. This is not fair." Law, who reacted, roared loudly, looking at the dagger that was inserted into his chest. He looked back and stared at Dorag, whose face was full of guilt, and roared loudly, "If it was your son today, don't tell me that you would do the same." After that, Law's pupils dilated to the largest extent in his life. As long as Dorag was lying, he would be able to see it. Even if it was Luffy standing in front of me, I would not hesitate to raise the butcher's knife. Dorag's tone was very firm, and he said unwaveringly, "What we are carrying is the whole world. Even if it's my son, if he's suspected of being in cahoots with Royce South or Doflamingo, I'll still kill him without hesitation." These cold-blooded and ruthless words shocked everyone by Dorag's decisiveness. Cold-blooded animal. Seeing this unexpected scene, Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, sighed. Although he could understand Dorag's indifference and impartiality as a leader, especially in this important period. But if it was Dustless, he might not be able to do it. However, I have to thank Dorag for helping me get rid of this eyesore. Since you didn't hesitate to offend Red Hairshanks to help me, hee. When I release the infinite Tsukuyami, I will make you the king of the world as a token of my gratitude. Dustless smiled sinisterly. I curse you, despicable and shameless bastard, to be torn into pieces. And you too. Aware of the rapid loss of vitality, Law roared angrily and unwillingly. He didn't expect to be killed so inexplicably. He still had a lot of dreams to fulfill. If you're dead, then you're dead. Why are you still struggling? It's hard to even leave your corpse intact. He strode forward and took out an extremely sharp kunai. A cold light splashed in the void. Then, Luo Zhen's head was separated from his body. He was killed like a dog. This brat. I helped you get rid of your enemy, Doflamingo, and avenge your most respected Corazon. Yet, not only are you not grateful to me, you're even cursing me. You deserve this fate. Dustless slandered him. This bastard was also courting death. This luxurious banquet originally did not have a stage that belonged to him. Since he wanted to join in, Dustless could only send him to heaven in advance. Hey, this guy is the Shichibukai. The government can be our informant. His strength is also good. He's a powerful fighting force. Looking at Law, who was completely dead, Red Hairshank sighed. This person has died, and it's impossible for him to fall out with Dorag and Tendo Uchiha Madara. I can only hope that he has a connection with the dangerous man Doflamingo. Dorag said with a blank expression. At the same time, he calmly returned to his original position as if nothing had happened. Yes. Tendo Uchiha Madara also echoed and deliberately raised his voice to remind. Even if spying information, isn't there still the Shichibukai? After Uchiha Madara's reminder, everyone's eyes looked at the man behind Red Hairshanks. They were all surprised, thinking of his identity and past experience, and then nodded. The focus of several pairs of eyes was the clown buggy. I still don't agree with attacking Dressrosa. Royce South, Dustless, and Doflamingo are too dangerous. If we attack rashly, we will automatically die. Dorag said very stubbornly. As the leader of the Revolutionary Army, he has been hiding for so many years, and he can't suddenly expose himself like this. Red Hairshanks also nodded immediately. This group of guys. It seems that if we don't make some movements, it's impossible to make them take the initiative to die. Looking at several people, Tendo Uchiha Madara thought. Monchi D. Dorag and Red Hairshanks are the kind of people who are extremely careful. It's impossible to make them die without risking anything. Being too strong is also a sin. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, sighed with deep helplessness. Sometimes being too strong is indeed a sin. Your words are too unfair to those who have been killed by you. If Whitebeard knows, he will definitely jump out of hell to find trouble with you, young master. Hancock, who has been standing beside Dustless, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dustless's words were really too hurtful. Ta-ta-ta. The sound of hurried footsteps suddenly sounded. Uchiha Madara raised his eyes and looked at the pirates rushing over. After seeing the things on their bodies, he breathed a sigh of relief, feeling as if the clouds were lifted and the sky was clear. In the end, no matter how they change, it seems that they can't escape my control. Chapter 932. A man with a flattering face, a little famous, one of the members of the Blackbeard pirates, Balsas. Dustless recognized him. In the future, he was the one who said that he would rob Ace's relic, the flame fruit, from Luffy. Now, even if I don't want to go to Dressrosa, I have to walk right into the trap. With a faint smile, Tendo Uchiha Madara sat back in his seat. Even if he was just a corpse, he was still leisurely sipping his tea. Quietly looking at the newspaper in Balsa's hand, Uchiha Madara's face flashed with relief. Captain, oh no, Admiral Titch. Balsa's face was tangled. Since Blackbeard took the position of Yonko, 4 emperors, and inherited the legacy of the former Whitebeard, he disliked the nickname of Blackbeard and called himself Admiral. What's the point of being so reckless? Blackbeard glared at Balsas with dissatisfaction. He felt extremely embarrassed. Right now, there were 3 Yonko, 4 emperors, gathered here, including himself. However, this brat's expression was as if he had seen a ghost. He had thrown his face in front of his archenemy, Red Hair Shanks. Maybe you're more surprised than Bolsa's. Looking at Blackbeard playfully, Uchiha Madara continued to drink alone. Just as Uchiha Madara guessed, after receiving the newspaper in Bolsa's hand, Blackbeard's face was dull, his rough mouth wide enough to stuff a fist. That bastard Doflamingo. Is he crazy? Staring at the newspaper, Blackbeard's eyes were bloodshot and almost fell out. After confirming that he wasn't dizzy from old age, he almost roared. His sharp and numb voice was quite like a eunuch's. Seeing Blackbeard lose his composure, Shanks and Durag squeezed their faces together, puzzled. It must be explosive news to make Whitebeard, one of the Yonko 4 emperors, lose his composure. Out of curiosity, they also picked up the extra newspaper, and so did Buggy. It's okay if you don't read the content of the newspaper, but as soon as you read it, your expressions were all petrified. Their trembling arms grabbed the newspaper and even tore it uncontrollably. Don't be surprised. Uchiha Madara laughed contemptuously. He immediately picked up the newspaper and glanced at it, pretending to be surprised. That idiot Doflamingo actually used the ancient weapon Pluto as the reward for the arena champion? These words were like water ripples that brushed past everyone's ears. He raised his voice on purpose. We should immediately head to Dressrosa and snatch the Pluto design blueprint. The future revolution requires the protection of a world-destroying weapon like the Pluto. Commander Titch, send troops to wipe out Dressrosa of Doflamingo. I'm willing to be the vanguard. The position of the king of the world is right in front of us. Shanks, we must obtain the Hades blueprint. Once we create the ancient weapon, we can take revenge and destroy that despicable demon, Louis Mail. The appearance of Pluton's blueprint ignited the emotions of all the pirates. Their faces were full of fanaticism and yearning. They couldn't wait to grow wings and flatten Dressrosa. The crew of the Akagami, Red Hair, pirates and the Blackbeard pirates, including the Revolutionary Army cadres brought by Dorag, all encouraged their bosses to seize the Pluto design blueprint. In this way, you have to go even if you don't want to. With a smile, Uchiha Madara closed his eyes comfortably. This group of people had no right to choose. From the beginning, they were destined to be led by the nose. Conspiracy. This must be a conspiracy. Doflamingo can't take out this kind of thing for no reason. I remember that kid. He is the most cunning. There must be a problem. Yes, this blueprint must be fake. He is the Shichibukai. He must have colluded with the government to trap us. Without even thinking about it, he directly rejected the Pluto design blueprint in the newspaper. And the one who denied it was Blackbeard, who looked like he had seen a ghost. The data doesn't seem to be fake. If this is true, Akagami, Red Hair, murmured after careful confirmation, revealing a deep greed and covetousness in his words. Just like what his vice-captain Ben Beckman had said, after obtaining Pluto and creating it, the Navy government and Lois Nandon would be nothing but a joke. One shot of destruction. Although I don't know if it is Pluto's design blueprint, one thing is certain. This is definitely an unprecedented super battleship design blueprint. The speaker was the Revolutionary Army senior brought by Dorag. The Revolutionary Army is different from the poor pirates. In recent years, they have plundered many professional shipbuilding masters. You have a little vision. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, was relieved. He was really afraid that this group of bumpkins wouldn't recognize it. After all, it is a legendary weapon. So what? I can be sure that this is a conspiracy. Blackbeard still sneered. Such a superficial plan is too obvious. I know it may be a conspiracy. Dorag and Shank's faces were extremely ugly. There was no need to think about it. Doflamingo took out the Pluto design blueprint. But what can they do? Can they not go if it is a conspiracy? Obviously not, in case the world government gets it. Akagami, Red Hair, and Dorag, Red Hair, were pale. Even if they knew that this was a conspiracy, they had to go. Once the world government gets Pluto's design, they will definitely be destroyed. That kid is so good at playing. Blackbeard, who had figured it out, vomited blood. His messy hair was like a bird's nest with crows entrenched in it. This was an open conspiracy from beginning to end. After not seeing each other for a while, Doflamingo's methods of scheming had improved by leaps and bounds. But no one knows that Doflamingo at this moment has been made one of the 6 paths by Dustless. Chapter 933. Blackbeard was tense and experienced, and he spat out hot air waves from his nostrils. He tried to find a reasonable explanation to comfort himself, but he couldn't find an excuse after thinking for a long time. Unable to be comforted, he was angry and felt worse than being slapped a few times. The dignified Yonko, 4 emperors, was schemed against by a Shichibukai for the time being. Even if he knew that this was a trap, he still insisted on going in. The flame of grievance almost burned his head. That bastard is smarter than before. He set up a trap that even if we knew it was a conspiracy, we still had to go into it. Damn Doflamingo. Red Hairshanks's face was also extremely ugly. There were blue veins on both sides of his forehead, and his iron fists were clenched tightly. It doesn't matter if he is schemed against by other Yonko, 4 emperors. Anyway, everyone is at the same level, and he can't fight back. But he was inexplicably slapped by Doflamingo, and he couldn't fight back. Not only that, but he was also led by the nose by him. This has exceeded the limit of what he can tolerate. You are just part of my plan. The actors are far from enough. You only represent one piece in the Revolutionary Army. You can only be regarded as the second and third protagonist. The first protagonist is not you. Through the sight of Uchiha Madara, Dustless in Dressrosa smiled calmly. Pluton can attract the attention of forces all over the world, and one piece in the Revolutionary Army are only part of it. Not only the few of us, but those forces who know the value of the King of Hell will also rush to Dressrosa and obtain the King of Hell in the world. Who can resist such temptation? You can't, I can't, the whole world can't. Monchi D. Dorag said heavily, and sweat stains came out of his temples. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, of the world government, including the Marine, will certainly not be able to escape the temptation of Pluton. They should take out all their high-end battle power and fight back. It is impossible for Pluton's design to fall into our hands. Suddenly rolling his eyes, Drago's eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. That bastard Doflamingo, he's determined to drag the whole world down with him. No matter who gets the Pluto blueprint, they will suffer a great loss. You're right. Tendo Uchiha Madara agreed and immediately put on a cautious expression. Don't forget that the celestial dragon named Louis South is still in Dressrosa. If we want to take Pluton, we will have to fight him. We must bring all the elites to barely defeat him. It's true that all the elite pirates should be concentrated. When they confront each other, they are bound to encounter the Marines and even the world government. Maybe even the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will personally take action. Everyone nodded and agreed with Uchiha Madara's words. In the face of a godlike enemy, they must come up with a godlike formation to deal with it. Of course, no one could understand the meaning behind Uchiha Madara's words. Moreover, even if it's a trap, so what? After obtaining the Pluto's design blueprint, the history of the entire world will be written by us. Uchiha Madara's words led everyone to fall into a real dream. In a trance, they saw the evil rule that destroyed the world government, standing at the top of the world and being praised by all living beings. Dorag and the others, who came back to their senses, looked at each other. In this case, it's better to fight with all their strength. These troublesome ants have finally been dealt with. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, breathed a sigh of relief. It was really a laborious thing to gather them together. First, I will use Pluton to kill the most threatening group of people, and then I will use Infinite Tsukuyomi to finish it off. Then I will use Chakra to connect all the humans to the tree. In this way, it should be no problem to bear new Chakra fruits. Even if they can't reach the same level as me, it should be no problem to prolong their life and keep their youth forever. Recalling the girls in the system, Dustless sighed a little tiredly. After working so hard for so many years, in the end, it was all for them. Now that everything is about to end, the shackles that have always been with him are gone, and it's particularly comfortable. As for the guilt of Infinite Tsukuyomi, bringing the whole world into the Genjutsu world, Dustless doesn't have this feeling. Being oppressed by pirates is oppressing. Being exploited by the world government is still being exploited. Anyway, it's just a distorted world. In this case, it's better to go to the dream world together and be their ideal selves. They should thank me, the creator. In the end, Dustless came to such a conclusion. Following Dressrosa's announcement that the final victor of the arena would receive the Hades design, the people of the entire world were like sharks that had smelled blood, rushing to Dressrosa one after another. Just the design blueprint ignited the emotions of the whole world. The forces that knew what Pluton was naturally couldn't wait, and the ignorant people who didn't know what Pluton was laughed at. In short, the whole world was shocked by the sudden movement of Doflamingo. At this moment, a major event happened in the Marine headquarters. The Marine generals were also divided into two factions. At first glance, there seemed to be signs of division. Chapter 934. The Marine, as the world's largest organization, received the news earlier than the Yonko, four emperors, and held an emergency meeting for the first time. Because of the special reasons this time, only the high-level leaders with real power were gathered. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After getting Pluton's design, it's not a problem to build it with the government's ability. We can use Pluton to end the era of the Great Pirate. We must rush to Dressrosa. I don't need to think about it to know that this is a conspiracy. Who would call out such a precious thing like Pluton's design? The Marine can just watch the fire from the shore and calmly watch the pirates fighting over the blueprints kill each other. This old man firmly does not agree to mobilize all forces to attack Dressrosa. Within a few hours, the meeting of the Marine headquarters was centered around these two topics. The one who agreed to attack Dressrosa was naturally the radical Akainu Sakazuki, and the one who was against it was Admiral Fujitora, who was not weak. Fujitora, make it clear to me that the Marine Fleet Admiral is Sakazuki, not Fujitora. Hot magma rose from his hand and turned the cigar into ashes. Akainu sat in the seat that used to belong to Sengoku. After being the fleet admiral for a while, he didn't feel the slightest difference. Instead, he felt more and more headache. Especially the admiral in front of him who often fought with Akainu. The contradiction between the two sides was no less than Akainu and Akiji. Fujitora was even more excessive than Akiji. He didn't care about the fleet admiral's face and often stood up to disgust him. My eyes are blind, but my heart is not blind. I know that the fleet admiral is Sakazuki, Fujitora said in a calm tone, and immediately a sentence directly made Akainu tremble. If I were the fleet admiral, you would have been kicked out of the Marine, and it would not be your turn to order people around. Hearing this, Akainu's old face turned black, and he immediately took a deep breath and tightly suppressed the flames in his chest. First, the current situation is special, and he can't directly remove the position of Admiral Fujitora. Second, he has the support of Sengoku, Air, and veteran Marines like Garp. He often goes against Akainu without scruples. Sakazuki, attacking Dressrosa rashly is a risky move. You know the nature of Doflamingo. Fujitora lowered his voice and lowered his posture. Akainu is also a Marine Fleet Admiral, and the most basic face has to be given. What a joke. Akainu sneered at this. What's the use of taking risks? So what if it was a trap? Do you want to watch Pluton's design fall into the hands of the pirates? There is news that the pirate leaders of the New World, the Yonko, four emperors, are showing signs of joining forces. If we are late, the Pluton design blueprint will be theirs. In the future, the New World will not have a place for the Navy. The Marine admirals nodded silently. Akainu's words were not alarmist. If the Marine gets Pluton's design, waiting for Pluton to be born in the future, the Marine and the world government will be the first unlucky ones. But this is Doflamingo's scheme. If we go, we will definitely fall into his trap. Fujitora smiled and argued. Even an idiot could see that this was a huge trap. Doflamingo had dug a deep pit. The Marines clearly knew that this was a trick, but they still jumped in without hesitation. It was really a brainless behavior. That makes sense. There are also many Marine generals who think that Fujitora is right. The two of you, please don't argue. The old voice stopped the two quarreling men and was surprisingly useful. Akainu and Fujitora immediately stopped the war of words. Looking closely, it was Vice Admiral Tsuru, the most senior Marine at present. This kind of thing has made a lot of noise all over the world. The Pluton design blueprint has exceeded the scope of Marines management. In fact, It is useless for us to discuss such a big matter. We can't make the decision at all. The right to speak is not in our hands. The five of Mariehua are probably thinking about how to deal with it now. I believe that it won't be long before their orders will be passed to us, so there is no need to talk about quarreling. From beginning to end, we Marines don't have the final say. After saying a lot of words in a row, Vice Admiral Tsuru was also a little tired. Looking at Akainu and Fujitor, Vice Admiral Tsuru's old face was gloomy. It was extremely difficult for the two to sit quietly together and talk about plans, let alone cooperate. Both sides were stubborn and aggressive at the same time, and no one was willing to admit defeat, causing the current embarrassing situation of the Marines. The entire Marine was faintly divided into two factions. Then wait for the call from above. Akainu could only swallow the flames in his stomach. If he could, he would like to beat Fujitor now. This old guy is really annoying. This kind of scene is not the first or second time. Every time he makes the fleet admiral embarrassed. Sometimes he even becomes the target of public criticism. He doesn't have the quality of an admiral at all. Then wait for the call from Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Fujitor heard this and rested silently. Rumble. About half an hour later, the black Den Den Mushi, which had remained silent, suddenly rang. This was usually used to contact Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Sakazuki, it's me. On the other side of the Den Den Mushi, there was a powerful voice of one of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Akainu heard this and opened his mouth. When he was about to ask the Marine what to do, the news from Den Den Mushi shocked him. Not only Akainu, but also Fujitor, who was still angry, and Vice Admiral Tsuru, including other Marine Vice Admirals, also had the same expression. Chapter 935. A group of Marines was directly petrified, their eyes widened, and their faces were full of disbelief. Even Vice Admiral Tsuru, who was usually the calmest, had a dreamy expression. Even if it wasn't for the black Den Den Mushi and the voice of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, she would have thought that this was someone else's pretense. Well, is there any problem? On the other side, Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, heard that Akainu didn't answer for a long time and asked with a little doubt. This? Akainu looked stiff and looked around, and all the Marines nodded. There is no problem in arresting Royce South. But a Marine Admiral was inexplicably arrested. If you don't give a suitable reason, it will be difficult to convince the Marines. That guy killed Whitebeard during the War of the Best, and was called a hero by the entire Marine. There are many people who admire him inside the Marine. Akainu said awkwardly. Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, is simply too much. The content of the Den Den Mushi is the arrest of the current Marine Admiral Royce South. Even Akainu, who has a will like steel, is dizzy at this moment. Maybe, this may directly pull the whole world into the abyss. Royce South. Isn't that guy a celestial dragon? Why does the government want to arrest him? Fujitora asked with deep confusion in his words. Arresting a powerful celestial dragon for no reason. He instinctively felt that something was wrong. Reason? This kind of thing is already known to the whole world. Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, on the opposite side of the Den Den Mushi couldn't suppress the flame. Like an angry lion, he roared loudly. The black hand behind the scenes supporting Doflamingo is Royce South. Hearing this, all the Marines' faces turned sharply. They all clenched their fists and looked extremely dignified. The tone of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, has no room for negotiation. This reason can indeed arrest Dustless. But Akainu was still frowning. After listening to the explanation of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, his whole person was not relaxed but became more and more deep. The status of celestial dragons is higher than Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Even if Royce South is arrested, it will not be their turn. It is the CP0 who is looking for trouble with Royce South. What does it have to do with Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars? This is obviously overstepping their authority and meddling in other people's business. Akainu thought hard in his heart, and he couldn't figure it out even if he scratched his head. Just do as I say. Your navy will immediately mobilize all your forces and immediately encircle Dressrosa's Lois South. Don't worry about anything else. After that, without waiting for Akainu to answer, he continued to say, Royce South's strength is extraordinary. We have already thought about the bounty. 2 billion berries. He immediately hung up the den mushi. What do you have to say now? Staring at Fujitora, Akainu asked in a stern tone. Hearing this, Fujitora was silent and his face was gloomy. He had a bad premonition in his heart. The Gorosei inexplicably ordered the Marine to capture Royce South must not be a good thing. Are we arresting the celestial dragons suspected of insubordination? After a while, Fujitora suddenly said. Everyone, including Akainu and the other two admirals, Green Ox and Kizaru, had unnatural expressions. The world government is the boss of the Marine, and Tenryubito is the boss behind the scenes of the world government. He was indeed offending his superiors. Although I don't know the reason, it seems that I can only obey orders. To be honest, if I can, I really don't want to be enemies with that horrible man. Maybe our end will be worse than Dustless. Kizaru said helplessly. He was afraid of avoiding Dustless. At present, this is the only thing we can do. Although he is a former colleague, it is a bit unfair to do this now, but it is the duty of the Marine to obey orders. Gather all the elites of the Marine and immediately rush to Dressrosa to flatten Royce South. Akainu waved his hand and continued to order. Also, immediately expel that guy from the Marine and classify him as a pirate with a bounty of 2 billion berries. Due to the propaganda of the Marine, Dustless was kicked out of the Marine. In just a few hours, the news spread all over the world at a miraculous speed. The whole world seemed to have been hit by an unprecedented tsunami, which made the pirates and Marines all over the world, including other forces, dizzy. Gee! Not only did they expel me from the Tenryubito identity, but they also deprived me of the Admiral's identity. This kind of thing can't be done by Akainu, only the 5 old guys. Inside Dressrosa's palace, compared to the turbulent world outside, Dustless's place was peaceful. He was enjoying afternoon tea as usual. Hancock massaged Dustless's legs without changing her expression. Perona still massaged Dustless's shoulders with an unhappy face, and Califa stood beside Dustless like a javelin. In short, nothing has changed. Compared with the safe and sound Dustless, Mariehua at this moment is another scene, like the Avicii Hell, the most bloody and violent side since the establishment of the world government more than 800 years ago. Mariehua, which usually looks like a peaceful paradise, is now a sea of blood. Chapter 937. Late at night, the cold wind gradually turned cold. Only Wu Chen was resting on the big soft bed. Due to the possibility of a big battle tomorrow, Wu Chen also refused the few women's hospitality. It would not be too late to be ridiculous after the whole world was dragged into the nightmare of infinite Tsukuyami. In the warm bed, Dustless arched his body. After a period of high tiredness, he also needed a proper rest. No one could stand living in a tense environment all day long. After some time, Dustless, who was sleeping soundly, frowned. A warm and cold body suddenly got into the bed and snuggled into Dustless's arms like a kitten. Like a little bird, she slowly took off Dustless's pajamas. Dustless felt that this body was unfamiliar. When he was about to open his eyes to explore, cold thin lips suddenly blocked his mouth and unscrupulously asked for more. Could it be Robin? It must be. After so many years, she finally became enlightened. Wu Chen relaxed his frowning brows and enjoyed the taste of the fusion of ice and fire. He closed his eyes contentedly. About a few minutes later, Wu Chen's calm heart was stirred up by the ecstasy. The perfect body in the bed was like an exquisite work of art. It was perfect to the extreme. Even with his eyes closed, Dustless could feel the delicacy of the skin. After a while, Dustless changed from defense to offense. He was not a monk. He could not restrain his desires nor suppress them. The next morning, the warm air passed through the window as usual. Dustless rubbed his eyes and opened them sleepily. Unexpectedly, a perfect face was looking at him with a smile. Her sacred green eyes were flawless, and her white arms were supporting her chin. Every strand of her beautiful golden hair was as dazzling as gold. Her fresh and elegant temperament made her seem like a fairy that had descended from the 9th heaven. What made one's blood boil was that this perfect character girl was actually not wearing any clothes to cover her body. Yo! Seeing Wu Chen staring at her without blinking, the young girl waved her hand and greeted him. Yo! Seeing this, Dustless was stunned. He also raised his arm to greet her. After being stunned for a few seconds, Dustless suddenly realized that something was wrong and twitched. Yo my ass! Explain to me clearly. How did you get on my bed, Clya? Dustless's forehead was filled with countless crows. He almost vomited blood. This perfect girl in front of him was his cheating fiancée. Could it be that last night? That's right. It was me last night. You took away my most precious thing indiscriminately. Clya said with hidden bitterness and a trace of hesitation. Thinking of the madness last night, Wu Chen's body stiffened. He immediately stole a glance at Clya's perfect body that could reflect the sunlight. His face turned red as he threw her a piece of clothing. Hurry up and put it on. The latter stuck out her tongue at Dustless, then put on the clothes obediently. She looked at the blushing Dustless with a smile and said seriously, I don't mind. Why should a man like you mind? You make it sound so easy. No one would be able to feel at ease about doing this kind of thing with a strange girl. Dustless rolled his eyes and said, You heartless guy. I am your fiancé. Clya glared at Dustless with dissatisfaction and said resentfully, And we are a match made in heaven. Getting me is the same as conquering the whole world. I am not a pretty boy who relies on his face to make a living. Dustless groaned and said with dissatisfaction. He couldn't help but ask curiously, Getting you is the same as getting the whole world? What do you mean? You have to promise to take responsibility for me first. Clya's sweet laughter was intoxicating, like the sound of nature. Suddenly, Dustless lowered his head and became silent. He wanted to refuse directly, but when he looked up, he met Clya's watery eyes. She looked a little timid and worried, and her eyes were unusually frightened. He couldn't bear to see her like this. Dustless didn't think that he was a good person, but since he had done it with a woman, taking care of her for life was a must. This was the basic principle of being a man. Although this was an accident, the main reason was Dustless. No problem, you say it. Gritting his teeth, Dustless finally made a decision. Even though Clya was also from Tianlong, Wu Chen, who was good at observing people, could still see that her nature was not good. She did not have the overbearing arrogance of the people from Tianlong. After saying that, the girl kissed Dustless's face and then leaned lazily in Dustless's arms. She recalled the past and explained softly, I am one of the ancient weapons that the world has been chasing. Heavenly King. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, before Dustless could be surprised, a cold emerald light suddenly appeared in front of him, trying to tear Dustless apart. It was so sharp that everything in its path exploded. An emerald slash? Is it that guy, Eagle Eye? Dustless frowned and guessed. He then said to Clya, I will listen to your story in the future, but this world will end soon. I will temporarily put you back into the world of Shen Wei. No problem. Hearing this, Clya nodded like a little chick. She trusted Dustless a lot. The people of Tianlong have been destroyed by the 5 elder stars. You are the only one I can rely on in this world. Don't worry. I will not let you down. Dustless gave her a comforting look. He was also quite open-minded. To be honest, he was very curious about this woman at first and secretly guessed her origin. He didn't expect her to be the legendary Heavenly King. Maybe it's because she ate some kind of devil fruit, Dustless guessed in his heart. At the same time, he released Shen Wei to devour Clya. There were countless cases of humans eating some kind of devil fruit that caused their body to mutate. The former CP9 officer Spandam had a similar weapon in his hand. Boom! Boom! While he was thinking, the huge slash was getting closer and closer, and it was about to swallow Dustless. The sharpness of the slash was enough to easily tear a mountain. You're overestimating yourself. Sitting back on the sofa indifferently, Dustless's eyes rippled. 2 figures hidden in the darkness shot out, blocking in front of Dustless like a shield. Ka. The 2 of them exerted force at the same time, and a huge fist blasted forward. The powerful fist roared out and directly shattered the oncoming slash. It was 100 Beast Kaido and Doflamingo from the 6 Paths of Pain. After a while, the man with the eagle pupil, Hawkeye my hawk, appeared. Even you betrayed me, Hawkeye. Dustless's tone revealed a touch of emotion and the vicissitudes of life, unusually calm. Hearing this, Hawkeye shook his head and immediately said indifferently, "It's not that I betrayed you, but you betrayed me. You violated the original agreement, and now you want to destroy the world. I'm sorry, our previous cooperation ends here, and now we are in a hostile state." Dustless's mouth raised slightly, and he smiled. "It seems that you know a lot, but it doesn't matter." Boom! 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 Violent tremors suddenly spread throughout Dressrosa, like a large earthquake of tens of magnitude, and huge cracks appeared on the ground of Dressrosa. "It seems to have started." Looking at the trembling sea in the distance, Dustless whispered. Chapter 939. Kizaru was shocked when he saw this. His old face finally couldn't keep calm. His eyes were obviously full of horror. The glittering feet made Kizaru feel a fatal threat, and his hair stood up uncontrollably. Hum! The light condensed on his feet reached the limit, and his skin felt incomparable tingling pain. Kizaru chose to make the first move. His body was extremely tall, and he kicked toward Dustless's eyes. Dustless was as calm as stagnant water, and his whole body was terrifyingly calm, like a beast lurking in the dark, making people shudder. Humph! Seeing that Dustless didn't dodge or take defensive action, even with Kizaru's temperament, his heart flashed with anger, and the strength of his feet increased by 3 points. Boom! The violent impact spread, setting off a rapid impact explosion. A blazing flame mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the burning black smoke was up to 100 meters long. The sky was filled with water in an instant, and the danger of suffocation filled the air. This feeling... Kizaru was stunned, and he noticed a strange touch from his calf. He narrowed his eyes, and a bad feeling flashed in his heart. At this moment in the black smoke, a ray of golden light swept through without warning, followed by unlimited expansion, and all the black smoke was dispelled. Very powerful attack. Borsellino. The smoke receded, revealing the intact Dustless. His body was clean, and even the dust didn't cover it. On the other hand, Kizaru was still at a disadvantage. Looking closely, Kizaru's calf was caught by the left arm covered with hockey. This is courtesy. Lifting his calf, Dustless jumped up and greeted Kizaru's old face. Light speed kick. Boom boom boom. Kizaru's body was rampaging, and he was kicked hundreds of meters away by Dustless. He was lying on the ground, and his whole body was burned. Whiz whiz whiz, at the same time, several figures fell from the sky, and the ground was covered with smoke, and the outline was blurred. Revolutionary Army's boss, Do-Rag, Blackbeard Marshal D. Titch, Red Hairshanks, and, staring at the large group of pirates behind them, Dustless nodded slightly. There were many pirates with a bounty of more than 100 million berries, and this lineup may destroy the world government. Marine Fleet Admiral, Fujitora and Green Ox, and Garp and Sengoku and Admiral. Such a luxurious lineup, the spearhead was only aimed at one person, Dustless. Hand over the Hades design blueprint, and I'll let bygones be bygones, Lewis South, Chief Commander Kong said in a loud voice. His tone was so convincing that one could not help but obey. Ah! This battle formation is truly terrifying. Wu Chen's eyes spread out and saw countless legendary figures. He pretended to be afraid and smiled. Then, he changed the topic and stared at the stern-looking General Kong. A cunning smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. There is only one Pluton's design, and there are so many of you. Who should I give it to? Taking out Pluton's design, Dustless shook it, and the eyes of the pirates and marines also followed. Even the red-haired Shanks's expression was vaguely greedy and covetous. Obtaining the Pluto design blueprint and obtaining the world was just a matter of time. Who could be relieved of the throne of the world king? What a cunning guy! Garp and Sengoku looked at each other, and the pirates who besieged Dustless changed their eyes. They looked at each other, and from temporary allies, they turned into bad intentions. Haha. Of course, this kind of thing is mine. Blackbeard laughed, and his whole person turned into a gust of wind. An invisible hand condensed in the sky, full of high-density gravity, covered Dustless's Pluton's design. Idiot! Seeing this, Wu Chen smiled secretly. Not only did he not stop it, but he flicked out the King of Hell's design blueprint, deliberately letting the design blueprint fall into Blackbeard's hands safely. Ha ha ha, grabbing Pluton's design, as if grabbing the whole world, Blackbeard was about to laugh, but suddenly he was shocked to find that everyone's eyes looking at him had changed. In an instant, he became the target of public criticism. Shoo shoo shoo, how Shakuhaki raged, the earth trembled, the sea churned, the clouds in the sky disappeared, and the original clear sky was torn into a black hole for several kilometers. Whiz whiz whiz, the sword energy was raging, and the awe-inspiring fighting power was infinite. The first person to attack Blackbeard was Red Hair Shanks. Revolutionary Army leader Dorag was no exception. Or perhaps, the big and small pirates swarmed up and all rushed to Blackbeard. You don't move. Be careful that Pluton's design will be taken by others. The marine side has more rules. Although they are jealous, they rationally choose to stand by. Dustless quietly looked at Commander Kong, Sengoku, Garp, and others, and suddenly noticed that a few people were missing. Why aren't the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, on such an important occasion? Dustless's heart was full of reverie, and the inexplicable disappearance of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, was unreasonable. Our marine's task is not only Pluton's design. Akainu saw that Sengoku and Garp, as well as Commander Kong were there, and he suddenly became confident. In addition, there is your head. Chapter 940. Dustless's pupils were dead and somewhat horrifying, able to swallow the human mind. This group of people. The Navy is really shameless. Wu Chen raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. His eyes fell on the indignant Sengoku and Garp. Dustless's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Since they can cut off their past relationship, Dustless can do the same. Gravity Sword, Tiger. An incomparably domineering slash swept over. The power of the slash was so great that it caused people to feel despair. The slash was imbued with the power of gravity, and wherever it went, it left behind a mess. The ground was sliced apart as easily as tofu, leaving behind a fissure that was tens of meters deep. It swept toward Dustless with the momentum of crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. You're just a loser, but you're so arrogant. Dustless naturally wouldn't choose to sit still. Chakra in his body was surging, and a very dangerous wave floated out of Dustless's body. Don't even think about it. Sengoku's body shone brighter than the sun, and his body expanded rapidly, turning into a sacred and solemn Buddha. His palm condensed in impact and aimed at Dustless. Garp and Akainu looked at each other, each showing their magical power. Hockey and their respective abilities bloomed with the power to destroy the world. The colorful light was shining, revealing the power to destroy the world. Without exception, the target was Dustless. Boom boom boom. Dustless's location was subjected to countless powerful attacks and was instantly flattened. All the buildings in Dressrosa also turned into nothingness. Even the pirates fighting nearby were involved in it, and their bodies were not left behind. Ka ka ka. A huge roar sounded, and a crack that stretched for countless meters spread rapidly, swallowing the entire Dressrosa, and the island that had been passed down for thousands of years or even longer collapsed in the blink of an eye. Divided into 2. Such a powerful attack, even if he is immortal. Sengoku's voice hasn't fallen yet, and the void condensed a dazzling light, and Dustless's body recovered. Not only that, but it was accompanied by a flash of light that penetrated all things. Yasakani no Magatama. Extremely dense rays of light blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Cold light flickered, far sharper than blade light. Furthermore, they were abnormally hot. There was simply no way to evade the torrential rain of light. Almost half of Dressrosa had been torn to shreds. Leave it to me. Under the perception of observation hockey, the exaggerated attack was detected by Fujitora. The tachi in his hand gently tapped on the ground, and a miraculous scene was instantly staged. The ruined buildings on the ground completely ignored the existence of gravity. They slowly rose into the air and finally floated in midair. Boom boom boom. A lot of smoke and dust splashed in the sky, and the flashes crushed all the ruins. The Marines on the ground were safe and sound and were saved by Fujitora's ability. Since I'm going to wreak havoc, I might as well do it thoroughly. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Dustless's eyes became even colder. His body emitted a golden light, and the incomplete Consusinu enveloped his body. He stared at the island beneath his feet with contempt in his eyes. Tung-ai quaking star. In an instant, the clear sky turned incomparably dark. This strange scene stunned everyone, and they all looked up at the sky at the same time. In the depths of the clouds, a huge meteorite about 15 kilometers in diameter slowly fell. Its range covered the entire Dressrosa. Everyone's face was dispirited, and the dead silence was replaced by shock. Jeppo moonwalk. In the crowd, an untimely laugh resounded through the sky, and then a broad figure rose from the ground. Compared with the meteorite, this person's thin body was obviously not worth mentioning. But no one dared to look down on him, and Dustless was no exception. This old thing. Where is this Jeppo moonwalk? It can be counted as flying. Dustless's tone was somewhat stunned. The person who rose into the sky and swept toward the super-large meteorite was the marine hero Garp. It was completely like a rocket piercing the sky, not like Jeppo moonwalk at all. Boom boom boom. Haoshiku Haki rolled and raged, and for the first time in decades, Garp showed his full strength. Under this monstrous momentum, the falling meteorites in the void strangely stopped for a few seconds, as if they were held by a big hand without substance. Looking around, the earth was dark, as if the whole world was covered with a transparent gauze curtain, dim and dark. Under everyone's surprised gaze, the dark iron fist blasted toward the meteorite that was enough to destroy the world. Ka ka ka! The slowly falling meteorite made a crisp sound, and immediately shattered. With Garp's fist as the center, the thick and ferocious crack spread endlessly, as thick as dozens of people stacked together. In the blink of an eye, the entire meteorite was eroded. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of fragments also peeled off, and it was as big as a marine battleship. When it hit the fragmented island, it would definitely collapse, but fortunately, it was moved into the sea by Fujitora's ability. It's not broken yet? Garp's rough old face flashed a touch of surprise. Seeing the meteorite struggling at death's door, Garp's other fist whistled up. Boom boom boom. The meteorite that destroyed Dressrosa disappeared and turned into debris all over the sky. The brilliant sun poured down, and the shadow disappeared. The Marines and pirates also breathed a sigh of relief. Just now they had half a foot in hell. You think that's it? It's not that simple. Chapter 941. The island below was torn apart and turned into two halves. All the creatures looked at the exaggerated meteorite with a stunned expression. The atmosphere was dead silent. All the creatures felt that there was a big guillotine on their necks. They thought that they would be able to see the blue sky after clearing the clouds and mist, but they didn't expect to be greeted by another meteorite. Oh, really, you young people? Hey, now you want us old people to do it. You're getting worse and worse. These words attracted everyone's attention, and they looked for the source of the sound. Everyone's eyes were focused on an old man with a mohawk. His body was wrapped with explosive muscles, and he was even stronger than Garp. The vicissitudes of his face made him appear extremely old. However, his bright and spirited eyes would occasionally reveal an oppressively sharp luster. The world government's commander-in-chief, Sky. This old man's strength has always been a mystery. Now that I can witness his strength with my own eyes, it's pretty good. In the void, Dustless smiled indifferently, looking at the meteorite falling from the sky. His eyes flashed with disapproval. The effect of dealing with the pirates with a bounty of 500 to 600 million was perfect. Dealing with Garp and Sky, these superdimensional monsters, only served to show off their strength. Whoosh! The afterimage jumped up and rushed straight toward the meteorite falling from the sky. Even because the speed was too exaggerated, Dustless could feel the storm blowing on his face. Without exception, like Garp, his fist was swallowed by the darkness, and he pointed straight to the sky without fear. Boom boom boom. An unprecedented heavy blow blasted on the meteorite, and the powerful force destroyed the sky and the earth. In an instant, the meteorite that covered the sky was smashed, and sky disappeared from everyone's sight. Bang bang bang. In the space where there was no one, it was like someone was stepping on the air, and there was a rhythmic explosion. But if you look closely, there were no birds or beasts. Full of flaws. The afterimage that disappeared in the blink of an eye couldn't be captured by others, but Dustless's eyes could see everything at a glance. Light speed kick. The flash condensed on the tip of his foot cut through the void and blasted straight ahead. The target was the flickering afterimage. Petty tricks. As he stared at the incoming beam of light, Chief Commander Kong's figure was revealed amidst the afterimages that were moving at an extremely fast speed. He floated in the air for a short period of time in a bizarre manner. His gaze was calm and composed, and there was contempt in his eyes. A pair of arms that were several times thicker than human thighs were swallowed by armament hockey, and the power of the fist was enough to smash an island. Bang! Chapter 942. Without warning, a huge fist fell from the sky. When Garp was hit with all his strength, he woke up from his dream and used armament hockey to defend himself. He suffered a heavy blow and his head was bleeding. Puff! Without exception, Garp also followed the footsteps of Air Commander and was blasted into the deep sea by Dustless. Go and save both of them. Akainu's face was blue and he yelled at the stunned Marines behind him. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. A group of idiots, they don't even have a little bit of eyesight. Next. A light voice filled their ears, and a figure flashed out of the ground. After I end you, this world will set foot on heaven. The line of sight revolved around the remaining high-level Marines, and the pirate side was ignored by Dustless. That group of people only cared about competing for Pluton's design blueprint. Blackbeard was already riddled with holes, and whether he could survive was a problem. Compared with the pirates, the Marines are the real enemy. Let's go together. Retired Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Admiral Tunghu, including the new Admiral Greenbull, and Akainu, everyone looked at each other and rushed to Dustless. Meteor Volcano. With a wave of his hand, it was his strongest move. A huge flaming fist rushed towards Dustless. Everything in front of the magma was burned to ashes. Dustless didn't change his face when he saw this, and his body erupted with a majestic repulsive force. Shinra Tensei. The magma near his feet was easily bounced out. The eyeball suddenly flashed with a dazzling light. Wu Chen instinctively raised his arm to block his eyes. Taking advantage of this opportunity, an incomparably tyrannical attack came from behind. Pucci! The invisible force fluctuation couldn't be defended. It was like a shock wave without substance. It instantly hit Dustless, and his bones also made a crackling sound of destruction. Dustless was seriously injured. It worked! Sengoku said hopefully. His eager eyes were piercing. Sengoku, is your ability this kind of irresistible impact? It really worked. Glancing back at Sengoku, Dustless was calm, as if nothing had happened. He didn't even cry out in pain, which made Sengoku deeply shocked. Mysterious power gushed out of his body. The broken bones and the injured viscera were repaired at an extremely fast speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths of time, he was completely healed. This exaggerated defensive ability caused everyone's eyes to widen, and a trace of despair inevitably rose in their hearts. What kind of monster is this bastard? Is it possible that he ate hundreds of devil fruits like that pervert Blackbeard? Thinking of Dustless's thousands of abilities, Akainu felt dizzy. As long as we shatter his entire body, he will never be able to recover. A deep shout raised everyone's hope. They looked up and saw that it was Commander Kong and Garp who had crawled out from the deep sea. At this moment, both of them were in a sorry state with blood all over their bodies. That's right, let's attack him together. Akainu also shouted loudly, a one-on-one fight may not work, but if 5 or 6 people come together, their combat power will inevitably increase. It's been a long time, haven't you given up yet? Dustless shook his head and sighed, and immediately looked at the stubborn and unwilling eyes of the Marine senior officers, and his whole body was covered with a higher density of chakra. Well, I'll let you see my true face. A nearly 200-meter golden giant wearing a Tengu armor appeared in the sky. Kansusanu complete form. The giant's head stood on the ground, and the whole world was covered by his light. His whole body was filled with the smell of ancient decay. His ancient armor had been through hundreds of battles, leaving countless traces, and the 2 long swords at his waist could cut the world. When Kansusanu complete form flashed, the whole world was silent, and the pirates and Marines who were fighting with Dressrosa stopped breathing for a moment. Even the coveted Pluto King's design was forgotten. Clang! Under the control of Dustless's mind, Kansusanu's complete form was unsheathed, and there was a crisp roar. When the Tachi of Light was completely unsheathed, the remaining creatures of Dressrosa saw the Grim Reaper in a trance. Everyone, give up fighting for the time being, attack Roy's south first, he wants to destroy us all. Durag shouted, and his tone carried the power of bewitchment. The pirates and even the marines were all influenced, and all the spearheads were aimed at Dustless. Boom! Ka. With a height of nearly 200 meters, it was not easy to move, and it immediately became the perfect target. It was surrounded and beaten violently. The exaggerated height was too big a threat, and it became the target of everyone's venting. Although Kansusanu's complete form was powerful, it was not invincible. In the face of the relentless bombardment of thousands of strong people, its armor and limbs were constantly smashed. However, the incomplete cracks would be repaired by chakra gushing out of Dustless's body. When there are many ants, they can also shake the world. Dustless in Kansusanu's complete form sighed, and immediately, the majestic chakra rushed out, and the 200-meter-tall body strangely became taller. Not only that, a large number of irregular golden charms filled Kansusanu's body, and whether it was defense or attack, it was a world of difference from before, and it received a dimensional upgrade. Senjutsu, Kansusanu's complete form. Sorry, let's part here, I'm tired of playing, let's part here. Dustless said to himself, and then his pupils twisted sharply. Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.